You need to click on it.
Where is it?
Yeah.
How do I?
This one. Wait. Let me open the head for
How
you.
do I find that? Get to that link again. Let's see. Boy, this is so funny. This OBS is. Oh, here we go. Start. All right, join. How do I join into this? Okay, so we're in. People are joining.
Yeah.
How do I share this space? Yo, what's up? Mute. Okay, Harris, I'm going to drop you down. Go ahead and mute,
Okay.
please.
Sure.
Nice, thanks. looks like I'm in. Okay, so looks like we're live. I got my stream going. I got a camera going on YouTube. I got okay, Casey. I'm going to try to find you and get you up here so you can help me with this. Help out if you could be so kind. There she is. Okay. Nice. I don't know how people do this with hosting and also do producing at the same time. Not gonna happen for me. What's up? Okay, Casey.
Hello.
Good. Yes, we got you. Good afternoon. Good to see you.
You too. Thanks.
All right, it's a great day. Today's going to be the scaling Bitcoin space. This is a big one, right? We got Siggy coming up. We got Kurt Wuckert Jr. coming up, and it's going to be one to remember for the ages. One of the things I talked about yesterday on a short video I did was about the how we're like in this innovator stage, and we're like, a long time ago. I remember 2017 when Cliff I was even talking about the crypto stuff. We thought we were in the early adopter phase back then for crypto. Well, this is the actual Bitcoin phase, like the Bitcoin protocol phase, where the base layer of Bitcoin is now evolving because it had been completely shut down. They shut down Bitcoin at that time and pretty much tried to put it out of business. But now it's completely evolved and it's at its final stages of completely being released to the world and scaling to infinity. I think I called the YouTube stream "Scaling Bitcoin to Infinity." So because it's that's what's about to happen. So, okay, looks like we got Kurt up. Yeah, he's up on stage. Kurt, how you doing, bro?
Yo, I'm good enough, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. I've got like this persistent lungy cough for about 5 weeks now, and I am otherwise fine. I'm sleeping well, eating well, the exercise regimen fine, but I have a cough. It's really starting to tick me off, but otherwise I'm good.
Well, it looks like you could take your anger out on your cough for the jitsu mat. I've seen you in there just
Yes.
pounding people in there. So, man,
Correct.
I would not like to be in that ring with you, man. I really hope those other guys really enjoy
No.
beating. So it's
You know what? I don't fight anymore. So mostly I get to goof around with my students and teach them how to beat people up. So that's just a little bit more civil, but I do go pretty hard when they start giving me an attitude. So
nice. Yeah, I can tell, man. It looks pretty tough. So, okay, it looks like we got our man Siggy up today as well. Siggy.
I see the puffin.
Casey, do you see him up on stage?
I see him as a speaker too. He may be having a technical difficulty.
All right. Well, he'll come in a moment. You may have to unmute Siggy, or if you have to rejoin, that's fine. We can wait. So, yeah, I mean, there's so much going on right now, Kurt, with what's happening with the space, and I really appreciate you coming up because it's first of all, I'm going to London, and there's a lot of freaking, the trolls are out in full force right now, and they are just attacking Bitcoin. I mean, it's never ending, right? You've been seeing it for forever, but they are now throwing more FUD than ever. It's more and more and more piling on. So everything is going great in my opinion, but and I bet and you're on the inside. So what can you tell us about the latest stuff?
Oh man, I don't know about inside or latest and greatest necessarily, but I am pumped about Teranode stuff. We are one of the 2 companies that have been testing it in the wild, testing it commercially. We are working on tying it into a whole bunch of our internal stuff, like our indexers and some of the other things we run for the ecosystem. Because Teranote is so much more efficient. It's frankly just easier for us to run data off of Teranode, but we're still working on that. Lots of growing pains a little bit because it's completely new interfaces across the board. But I'm also pumped about London. London is going to be exciting. I'm excited to see the side-eye glances from the anons from crypto Twitter who are that like I can always tell they're surprised when they see me in person because they're very tough behind a keyboard, but I can tell when somebody wishes they could tell me something to my face and then they see me and then it's not going to happen. But they're always a good time. London, I just think is a really fun city as well, so I'm kind of excited to see London, although late October London is its own experience. I'm going to have to see if I even have a jacket and gloves anymore, given that South Florida is basically permanently tropical. And then we're super pumped about the Gorilla Pool stuff. We just launched the new gorillapool.com. So if people haven't seen that in a while, that's new as of this week. We also updated the gorillapool.io site, which is our partner. If you're one of our hashing partners, you would connect to the .io. So we got all the documentation's been updated. All of the we got a bunch of APIs updated. We got a bunch of charts for tracking both the hash power of the network and the hash power of the pool and all kinds of other stuff. So we have updated both for just the community and also for our direct clients. Have a whole bunch of new stuff to look at. We haven't super announced it yet. We have mentioned it, but we haven't made a big hullabaloo about it yet, but we're pretty pumped about all of that. And then we've got some really cool stuff we're working on that we hope to have out in the next week or 2 as well. But I cannot dox what that is just yet.
Wow, dude. So the London stuff is really going to be exciting because I'm planning on going a couple days early. I think I'm going 2 full days early, and
nice.
Yeah, so it'll be. We're going to go to. There's a group that's getting together, and I'm waiting on the details, but I'm going to announce it once I get it. The group of get together, including Mitch, Berman, L, and others are going to get together and go and check out.
Yes, I know this event. Yes. This I am very, very excited about this event.
Oh, you're going.
So
okay, cool.
I am.
Nice.
I think I will be speaking actually. Cool. So I don't want to give away too many hints because it's her. It's L's thing to announce, but I'm super pumped about it.
Me too. Yeah, I'm gonna go early for that. That should be really fun, and yeah, I really like those people. They're good people, and I'm excited to go see London from an insider, more of an insider's perspective, and really get to know it better. And yeah, I'm really excited about that. And then the event is just 2 days or whatever, but it's gonna be awesome, dude. I can't wait, man. I mean. The more FUD, then the better the event's going to be, in my opinion.
Yes.
Dude, what about Siggy? Are you up on stage?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry about that. It was a bit of a false start. I'm starting to get a little bit paranoid because my Wi-Fi just died just when Kurt was starting to speak. I had to switch over to 5G now to
oh boy
to join. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
If you're-
hopefully you still, you may need Secret Service around you soon at all times because anyone who speaks freely now, they're looking to, they need Secret Service.
Yeah, you better check for a Wi-Fi pineapple behind your stuff, Siggy.
Always on the outlook for pineapple. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I know you're going.
No, good.
You're going to be
Good
in
to
London.
be here, man.
Good to have you.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Of course, I'm going to be in London. Yes,
Yes.
we have. I know about this event the guys were talking about, but I think we have something else. Unfortunately, we have to. We're giving a lecture at the University College London to a bunch of students, of course, about BSV and things like that. So I think we're going to miss that pre-event, but we're definitely going to be in the LBC.
Nice. Well, this is great because I wanted to have like kind of an open forum, informal, space with you and Kurt and all the things. I mean, can you announce that Teranode is released now, or is it still almost released? What's the status?
Well, we can make that soon TM now even bigger. We were actually going to release the beginning of next week. It was all planned up, all the stuff, and teasers have been going out. But I pulled the plug today because we found an issue that we need to fix before that. So I pushed that out a week. We have been just to give you guys a little bit of an insight into what we're actually doing. Yeah, don't worry, it's working. But we've been running Terra testnet also together with Gorilla Pool. Gorilla Pool is actually on one of the Terra testnets. And the funny thing is, they are not maintaining their Terra testnet server very well. They're not really paying attention. So sometimes it's behind, or sometimes in front, mining, doing strange things. But that's a good thing because we're testing. And basically, what we've been doing over the last couple of weeks, months, is hardening the whole thing. So we've been very much focused. So last year we did the 1 million TPS test, which was a proof of concept of processing everything, creating blocks, doing everything at scale, and that worked really well. After that, we were very much focused on getting Teranote onto mainnet and testnet, and it was a hell of a lot of work to get that done and make sure that was actually working properly. And then I think 2 months ago, we switched our focus from, that was working. Tal is now mining, I think half their hash power is now on Teranote. They're mining big blocks. They mined a 3 gigabyte block last week, which was actually a surprise to us, but, fantastic. They're out there, trailblazing. But if you run a Terra testnet, Teranote, pure Teranode, there is some hardening that needs to happen. So it works, but if something goes wrong, that's the stuff that we're fixing. So, for instance, there was something. One of the developers was running a node, and then his network connection died. So the node is on the network, announcing itself, but we couldn't actually reach it properly. What happens then? How do you handle that? How do you recover? You have to ban that thing. All these kind of things are the things that we're tweaking now and making sure it's working properly. So all the unhappy path stuff, when things go wrong, that's the stuff that we're working on.
Nice. So it sounds like it's pretty darn close. Everything is
yeah. Yes.
Wow. Getting a lot of people. We're going to take questions, and everybody wants to jump up in a little bit. So if that's okay with you guys, we'll take some Q&A in a little bit. But before we do that, I just really like the vision for this. Like what it really means, because you're in the weeds so much and like all the tech side, but can you try to help take us down to the basics for like why this is so important and what a big deal this really is? Because
Can I give an analogy to start?
Please.
So I was an early internet nerd. Like, I loved the internet. I thought the internet was the coolest thing ever, but I was using it on dial-up and using things like I was a Mac guy, so I had like access to eWorld, which some old Mac users may recall. It was kind of I guess if you had to compare it to something a little bit like an AOL interface, but way simpler. And it was a very weird way to use the internet in hindsight. But we had dial-up internet, and you had to make an account with a company like Prodigy or whatever. And because the bandwidth was so low, you really only got other nerds on the system, and it was cool. It definitely had the exciting things about its culture, but it was not abundant because you couldn't really send a lot of data at a time, and so you were stuck talking to other nerds and mavens and early adopters, and there wasn't a way to practically integrate it into lots of parts of your life. And then I remember when I finally was able to get broadband internet for the very first time and start doing things like video chats or, even just sending big files between. I worked in the printing industry, so artwork was a huge deal. We used to drive floppy disks and stuff between printing companies and the pre-press department and all this other stuff. And it was like hyper inefficient. And then when we got broadband internet, all of a sudden we had this 50x or maybe even 100x improvement on a bunch of things, and that was when all of a sudden stuff started to hockey stick, and people really started to say, hey, like, we can start to play with interface in such a way that makes it that people can interact with the network and other people much more simply. But it was all because the underlying infrastructure had been upgraded to the point where you could create abundance in the interface and in the experience. And I think that's where we're at. We're right on the cusp where everybody is using these blockchains for the little tiny amount of stuff that they can do, and we're about to introduce that 4 or 5 orders of magnitude more efficiency and speed to the underlying experience, which then will allow app developers, UI developers, UX developers to start to create experiences that cannot be produced any other way. And that's the really exciting part. It's all the stuff that we can't guess, but there are thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even millions of devs out there who will come up with ideas that none of us can think of that would not have been possible in 2024. That will be the cornerstone of the internet or the metanet or whatever it's going to be in 2026, 2027 and beyond. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, and I think taking it to the next level. So I totally agree. I think if you look at it, in the 90s, I also started in the internet and building apps and companies in the 90s, just before the dot-com bubble burst. And what we were doing there, was very exciting. I think that's nothing compared to what's going to happen now. And things like Netflix or any of these streaming, YouTube, any of these services, you can imagine that on your dial-up modem. You can even think of a product like that. And just like Kurt says, you get this massive amount of bandwidth. And all those whole industries, springing up that weren't thought possible before that. I always remember that. I think all of us remember that quote from Bill Gates that your computer will never need more than 640 kilobytes of RAM or something like that. Something stupid like that.
What a visionary! Yeah.
What a visionary! Oh my God! But it's the same with this, and I totally agree. We don't know what's going to happen, but we just have to make it happen. And it was always in the plan. I mean, the fundamental design of Bitcoin with the UTXO based with the UTXOs and the proof of work, it can scale. Theoretically, it can scale infinitely. The limit is physics, and limit at the moment is our monkey brains trying to figure out how to do that. Because I want to take the analogy to a little bit lower level. What we're actually doing now, you could look at the SV node and the BTC core and the knots, that nonsense that's happening out there as well. This is a guy on stage with an acoustic guitar, singing. It's a solo guy. He's singer-songwriter singing a song, and what we're trying to do is create an orchestra, and getting an orchestra in tune and play together and all that stuff. It's a lot harder than be alone on stage with a guitar and singing your song, and that's what we're doing. But there's fundamentally speaking, you can make music with a guitar on stage, but you can also make beautiful music with an orchestra. It's just a lot harder. And so that's what we're trying to finish now.
Beautiful.
Ask a on that note.
Yeah, please.
Is Teranode like the big finish line for scaling Bitcoin, or is this another step along the way to something even bigger down the track?
I think it's just a start.
Okay.
It's just a start. So we're figuring out. So that's also very interesting, because when we started this project, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I'll just repeat again. When we started this project, we were told, and we also thought, so we had these preconceptions of what actually would be hard. And I know there's a lot of people that are very in love with Bitcoin script and how transactions are validated and all this stuff. And that I am too. I think it's absolutely amazing. But that's actually the easy part. That's the easy part of Teranote. None of that is hard. And actually scaling that is not very hard either. Is actually the orchestration of taking those 1 million transactions a second, making sure they're all in the correct order, get into the blocks, and then you have they get propagated properly, so they get propagated in real time instead of every 10 minutes. All that orchestration that needs to happen with this massive amount of data is much, much more complex, and there's a concurrency nightmare. And we have made an initial architectural choice of how we do that in how we create blocks, but that is fundamentally limited by physics now. So there's a bottleneck in there, and this is a complete estimate, so nobody can hold me to this, but I think we can get to about 5 or 6 million TPS with the current design, but then we have to take it to the next step. And that one bit, that block assembly where we assemble blocks, that needs to be re-architected, and then we can take it further. But there's nothing in the protocol that has any limits. That's the beautiful thing about it.
I want to add, look, thinking back to the internet again, my first high-speed connection was DSL, so it was using telephone lines. And then at some point we got cable, and not too long thereafter, things like fiber optic became available. And so there's like fundamental infrastructure upgrades that can be done that allow lots of other things to happen. And in Teranode, Teranode is not necessarily the limiting factor. So things like having interconnectedness of the major economic nodes and things like that, like just some fundamental infrastructure things can make for lots of big upgrades to the experience. But then also, I want to encourage people to check out my latest article at CoinGeek, because I wrote about a way to monetize the outsourcing of various microservices. Because, just like now there are hashing farms that break out the one specialized service that a Bitcoin node is capable of doing, this microservices model gives the opportunity to really shrewd people to come up with like, hey, maybe I will just run a signature validation service, or maybe I will just build blocks, or maybe I will just do any one of these things. And I came up with a way to monetize and incentivize doing it in a way that is distributed, like the individual parts of the node being more of a distributed service. Now, it's imperfect. It's not a technical document, but I give kind of a high level on how to use tokenization and overlay networks to actually do some of that underlying node infrastructure. Because I think one of the ways that this scales out, again, is entrepreneurs thinking of things that the engineers haven't thought of. But you get a guy who sees, 100 gigabyte blocks are pretty darn profitable. How do I get my piece of that pie? There's lots of people with lots of cloud compute and lots of other stuff that might see that opportunity and say, you know what, I can do this 100 times better than maybe even this mining pool can do it. And I'm going to provide that service to the network. And so I think it becomes more, quote unquote, decentralized because of that underlying incentive model. So I would encourage people to read my article and give me some feedback on it, because it's an incomplete idea, but I think there's a big underlying idea, and I'd really like more people to be thinking about it with me.
Absolutely, I think this is. I'd love to see this as well. So I think one of the things that in our goal, we would love some feedback on the documentation and things that we're doing, because we've worked very hard on trying to make everything very clear. And like you say, Kurt, the interfaces are very clear between the microservices and to the outside world and all that. And then, like you say, let developers get creative and the different kind of services, different things. We don't, and if you're running a Teranote, I expect Kurt actually to do this. He's probably going to fork the code, and he's going to replace some of the microservices with his own microservices. And this is exactly what you should do.
Indeed.
Indeed, he already has plans. Probably already started. So if you think the validation service or the block assembly or something else isn't up to your liking, it's not fast enough, it's not efficient enough, it's not giving you what just replace it. If it has the same in and outputs and the same interface as the one in Teranode now, it's a drop-in replacement, and you might have a. That's absolutely very excited to see what's going to happen.
Nice, yeah. Casey, did you want to add anything else to that?
No, I appreciate you answering my question. I was just curious on more of the longer term roadmap on everything with scaling. So thank you.
All right, Jay Paps, we got you up on stage, buddy. How you been?
Very good. Yourself?
Good. Excellent.
I'm here for the fireworks, buddy. I'm here for the fireworks.
Well, feel free to comment if you have any comments or questions. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
No, absolutely. Right now, I'm just sitting back, taking it all in. Nice to hear all the insights from Kurt so far. Let's hear what Siggy has to say, and yeah, let her rip, Tater Chip.
Nice. How about Abo Mac? Good to see you, buddy.
Hey everyone. Hey Siggy, just a specific question about hash. When do you see some hash moving over to Teranode or like just from other chains, other 256 hash chains to BSV? When do you see that happening? Or do you even have a different solution?
Well, I think the hash that's on Teranode it's going to be the same hash that's on BSV, right? Because the miner are profit seekers, so they're not going to mine a chain that's not profitable for them. So there's a certain amount of hash now based on the price, which is absolutely ridiculously low. It's a steal. Is not financial advice. I'm not telling anybody to buy anything. We can't do that. But it's absolutely ridiculous that we have this chain that can do everything it does, and it's what is it, $25, $26 now? But that is going to determine how much hash is on there because they are profit seekers. So with more activity and maybe a higher price, then more miners will come in. Tal is already using half their hash power on Teranote. So half the blocks are coming from the SV node, half are coming from Teranote. I'm actually a little bit shocked because it's very early. It hasn't been officially released, so I think that's fantastic. It's very brave. And I expect actually in the beginning it will be a lot of people want to try it out, and we're also trying to make it as easy as possible to run. So you can run it in many ways. I run it on my laptop locally. We have Docker setups that fire up a whole cluster of things for you, and you can run it. Dylan Murray and the team is setting that up. We're going to have instructions when we release. We're going to have instructions how you can actually run and join us on the Terra testnet. But the hash thing, it's an economic thing. It's not a technical thing. But our goal is to make it as easy as possible. So if some other miner wants to do that, we will welcome them, and we will help them set up their own Teranote to start hashing.
Thank you, Siggy. I appreciate it. And you don't need new hardware, right? Whatever there is in the market, that's sufficient at the moment, correct?
Absolutely, and I think this is what we've been working with Kurt and Tal very much about, is trying to make it as backwards compatible as possible. So I think the miners, the hashers, I should say hashers, and the orchestration that goes behind the scenes of getting block templates and submitting blocks and stuff like that. That is as far as I can see, is 100% compatible to the old SV node. So I don't think, but Kurt will have to confirm this. I don't think they have to make any changes on their backend, right?
Just a couple small things about the pool. So there are just because of the way that Teranode shares information with the pool software, and the fact that most pool software, well, actually, exclusively pool software is either totally proprietary or the open source stuff is way out of date. So that's one of the things that we're working on internally. Is we're building an entire pool implementation in Go. Which it actually doesn't even need to be in Go because pool software is pretty lightweight anyways, but Go is really efficient, and we want everything to be Go based. So Teranote is Go, Jungle Bus is Go, all of the OneSat indexers and all that stuff is made in Go, and so our pool will also be made in Go. So we did have to build out some new stuff to be able to connect Teranode to a pool because there just wasn't anything off the shelf that would work, but it's a relatively minor thing that needs to be done, and once it's done, it's done, and that's kind of it. So
isn't it mainly the like block announcements and things like that you're listening to that are slightly different?
Pretty much, yeah. So there's the get mining candidate is something that is not available in any open source pool software because it's a BSV exclusive thing, and nobody's making open source BSV exclusive pool implementations. And so we've just kind of had to redo it. And then just kind of the way some of the APIs and stuff communicate with each other is a little bit different. So it really is, a lot of minor things, and actually not even a lot of minor. It's a few minor things, and then we'll be good. But because we were going to take it on in the first place, we're just kind of rebuilding the whole thing from scratch and seeing if there's any other stuff that people maybe haven't re-examined in probably 10 years at this point, because why bother in a lot of cases. But we figured we've been a company now for 4 years, and primarily using software for the pool that's even older than that. So we're kind of going through it with a fine-tooth comb to see what else we can eke out of the system if possible.
Yeah, and one of the things that we also try to do is make it a lot more open. So there's information exchange between the microservices. There's also a message bus. I think we're using Kafka and Red Panda internally as well. And we'll make sure those messages also have a protobuf definition. If none of these things make any sense, you don't know what these things are, just ignore it. It's a bit technical. But it will allow somebody like Kurt to hook into the system of various places for various things differently, and gives you lots and lots of, many more options than SVNode to hook in and actually see what's going on or request anything from any of the microservices and things like that. So we're trying to make it, the most open, extendable blockchain node implementation ever.
Thank you, Siggy and Kurt. And just one last question, if you don't have to comment if you don't need if you feel it's a little bit over the top. What's the best TPS you've personally seen, Siggy, on mainnet? I know, like we check the blogs, and every time we do all these crunching numbers and stuff. But what's the best you've seen as far as TPS on mainnet on Teranode?
You know what? I wouldn't even dare say. I think it's a couple of thousand. I know I wouldn't dare to say. The Teranode is not limited in the TPS as we notice. We've actually noticed, and I think this is something that's probably in all the implementations that are based on the original BTC node software, is that there is a problem in the transaction propagation on the P2P network. The P2P network is it gets very chatty, very busy when you get to higher TPS levels. So we did notice when we were there, I think Bytail's last big test was with Bytail's the end of last year, I believe it was in December. And they hit a little 1,000 TPS, maybe a little bit over 1,000 TPS, and everything handled it fine. Teranote didn't flinch. But we noticed that our SV nodes in different geographical locations had very different mempool sizes, which is suggesting that the propagation isn't all that healthy actually on the old P2P network. And I am very confident that Teranote will fix that, because it's working very differently. Kurt mentioned this earlier, is that miners will seek to connect to each other directly. So we're already in talks with Kurt about setting up private, not private, but private connections between our Teranotes and their Teranotes. They're going to be like a super highway that we don't have to go over the public internet and things like that. And so Teranote is designed from what is in the white paper, is that every node will propagate every transaction it sees to the whole network. And that has been a very big focus on making sure that actually happens, because Teranote relies on it. It relies on the fact that when you find the block, you have already propagated everything across, and you're actually just almost immediately ready to start mining on top of the block that somebody else finds. So, which is also, I think, blocks in Teranote are only about 30 kilobytes, because it contains lots of references to other things that have been shared before. So it's much more efficient in validating the block and start mining on top of it. But that TPS limit on mainnet is a limit of SVNode. It's not a limit of Teranote. So that's why we're setting up our Terra testnet, which is pure Teranote. And we're running on some MacBooks, some work MacBooks. And I was pumping 350 TPS into it. And the way that, I was pumping 350 TPS from my laptop into my Teranote, and then that Teranote had to propagate everything. So it's like a worst case scenario into everything, to all the other 12 nodes, I think, that were there. And that was absolutely fine. We didn't even notice. That just worked.
Wow, that's really bullish. Any tests in the future, upcoming tests, maybe dates we should look at, Siggy, if there are any?
Absolutely.
Just for excitement.
Yeah, absolutely. We are setting up another big cluster next to our Terra testnet. We're also setting up a scaling Terra testnet. And we're doing that this time instead of on AWS, we're doing that on bare metal hardware. And apparently, it's a lot harder to get Kubernetes up and running properly on bare metal in the hosting provider that we're doing now than on AWS. So it's taking a little bit longer than we would like. But we're going to be setting up a couple of those clusters, and then we're going to push it to the max. And we hope we're going to get a lot more than 1 million TPS out of that. And that's going to come as soon as possible. And the guys are working very hard on figuring things out. And they're working on it's not Teranode stuff. It's like the network backplane and load balancers and all kinds of nasty things that you have to set up yourself when you're not in a service environment like AWS. And so that's coming as soon as possible. Then we're going to prove that it can actually scale really, really well.
Well, thank you so much, Siggy. If you guys aren't bullish on TPS, man, I don't know what you guys are doing. Thank you so much, Siggy. Appreciate it. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you,
Mac,
Gavin.
what is it that makes you so bullish? I mean, what is the vision that you see that maybe you can help other people see with this?
So for me, transaction per second is the golden goose that lays like the golden eggs, pretty much. So that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm checking for every time. And once it's on mainnet, then we're talking. You can deliver this to companies. You just don't make promises. It's there, so it's valid. You can show them that this is working.
I have to. I don't want to temper your expectations, but I'm going to a little bit. The thing, we have to be honest. What we're doing is, we fundamentally believe that the protocol and the design of Bitcoin is very scalable, but we're doing something that's very new. And you can imagine that the original Bitcoin code was released in 2009, and still to this day, there's bugs being found, and bug bounties being paid out because they found a problem in it and all that. And that's 16 years old. Teranode is just about to be released, and it's very, very new. So I expect we're going to be doing a lot of optimizations, but we're also going to be finding some things that we need to fix. So the plan is to have we can only recommend. We're not in control of the network. Nobody's control of the network. We're just a service provider. We're doing this because we're giving a donation to build Teranote for the miners, for the network with this big vision. But I'm recommending to the miners like Kurt and the rest of them to run SV node in parallel to Teranote for at least 9 months. So we have, it's not training wheels, but we have this backup if something's wrong, if we find some catastrophic bug, because we're all just a bunch of monkeys, right? We're just advanced monkeys, a little bit. We're a little bit more intelligent than the monkeys in the woods, but not much. And we make mistakes, and we have to find them and fix them. So we're gonna be careful. We don't want to break the network. This is absolutely coming. The TPS madness is going to come, but we're going to do it carefully, because breaking the network is the last thing that I want to do.
That was my question, was, if there is something that breaks, like, is there a fallback plan, or how do you stop that momentum once it's started?
So in full disclosure, in the last couple of weeks, I think we've found a couple of bugs in Teranote that we fixed, and we found a big one today as well. It's also fixed, is in place. But because we're running 12 nodes, the network just continues. So there's a problem with a node, something happens, and the other nodes they just don't accept it. They just continue. So because there's a problem, there's chaos, but the network doesn't go down. And I think that is the strength of this decentralized design. So it's not like if Kurt creates his own module to do something, and that has some problems, that the rest of us are going to be bothered by that. We're just going to invalidate his blocks or ban him off the network temporarily and then continue. And I think that is something that a lot of people that are trying to improve on the design of Bitcoin with proof of stake and all this other stuff that they're thinking, they're thinking in terms that kind of break that really decentralized nature of the Bitcoin design. So I mentioned we're doing 12 nodes. I think that's just because we have 12 people in the tech team that are running these things. But if we have 30, 50, 100 nodes on the network, you're not going to bring that down. That's just going to continue. And then it's up to you as a node operator to make sure that your node is running, that it's a change tips, nothing crazy is happening. Maybe you have to intervene a little bit in the next couple of months, but the network won't go down.
Yeah, and I'd argue that's the same as today. I mean, the
Yes,
network
absolutely.
the network has problems sometimes. We've had a couple of times where we're up for 30 hours straight trying to solve like, hey, what the heck happened? But that's the nature of being an honest node. It is a commitment to proactively operating your node such that the network persists no matter what. And there is that human element to making sure that all the passive stuff should work, but there's always some jerk out there looking for an edge case, or there's or a 0-day attack or whatever, or there's just whatever, like, hey, maybe somebody accidentally sent a bunch of very weird transactions that the system is struggling to parse or whatever, and people got to coordinate and make decisions on how to deal with that. And we see it. It's funny because it really is a job for the mining nodes to deal with, but you see it right now in the BTC community are having this whole JPEGs are terrorism versus how big should op return be. Like, they're all kind of bickering at their sort of node operator level too. They just have a little bit of a different view on exactly what a node operator is. They want everything to be fundamentally passive, but we are just happy to admit that passive is great under passive ordinary circumstances, but under extraordinary circumstances, an honest node basically just means a node with an honest operator.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point, and that goes back to the thing of being a singer-songwriter on stage or an orchestra. For the orchestra, you need the conductor. Is that no? It's not conductor. It's not the English word for it. Is it? I have 3 different languages in my head now. I don't know what the English word is.
Yeah,
It's conductor.
the conductor. Yeah, he's the guy at the front.
Conductor. Yeah. So you have a conductor. That's Kurt. Kurt, you're the conductor. But we're moving from a world of where you're managing your hash. I mean, it's already a lot of work to manage your hashers, because you got 10,000 hashers in a warehouse somewhere, or preferably in Iceland, because that's the best way to put your hashers. Cheap electricity and it's cold. But that's the biggest work now. That is going to change. That's still going to be there, but now you also have to have a team that manages, the transaction processing itself, because the transaction processing is not now 7 TPS or something ridiculous. We're going to go into Google scale. And so you're going to have a team of people that are monitoring this stuff and making sure everything is okay, and that you're actually getting your fees in, that you're making money, not just off the hashing, but actually of the transaction processing. And I think this is also the reason why I say, we should let's take our time to migrate from the SV node world that we're in now into the Teranode world. We also have to get all the miners up to speed. How does this thing work? How do I scale it? What do I do when something goes wrong? Because that's going to be a lot more involved now. Because the more systems that you have in play, you have more servers, you have more disks, you have more CPUs, you have all that stuff. And the more of any of that you have, the more things can go wrong. Something glitches in your network or your hard disk crashes, you have to react. And that's going to be, I think, maybe in the next 10 years, I'm not going to be super optimistic. Let's just say it's going to take some time. That is going to become the bulk of the work for a miner, instead of actually managing the hashers.
We've got a question on YouTube. It says, will data storage be a big obstacle in the future, and where will all this data go? So
this is actually interesting. During the POC that we did at 1 million TPS for 2 weeks, we had to do that. That was one of the goals that was set out for us, was do it on AWS. That's fine. It's much more expensive. So I think Kurt runs most of his stuff on bare metal, so he won't have those costs. But what you actually do get with AWS is all these services. So you can configure Teranode in many, many ways. It's much more configurable than SV node. So that's also something that the miners have to learn. And we had tiered storage in Teranode. So we had very, very fast storage that the node was using for hot data. But after a certain moment, that data got migrated over to S3. So I think at the end of the over the 2 weeks, we had, I think, something like 3 petabytes of data in S3. But the node itself wasn't actually, it was just, maybe a couple of tens of terabytes for hot data, and everything was fine. But just like you can do, I think most miners are doing this today as well, is that you can run the node in pruned mode. So that 3 petabytes of data on S3, you don't have to store that. You can get rid of it, but you can keep it. But this also opens up other opportunities, is a miner could do that and actually publish that data, or publish those endpoints, those S3 endpoints, for instance. So you could get transactions or blocks or subtrees, which is a part of how Teranode works, directly from S3. And I would recommend them to do that requester pays, which basically means if you are a company and you want one of my blocks, that's fine. You can get it from S3, but you just pay for that request. So the cost to the miner is very minimal. So you can set up these new ways of doing things that are now much, much easier than in the old world. And now it's going to be up to the creativity of the miner to do that best. How can you do that the best, fastest, cheapest, offer services to others as many, many more services? Because also, and this is something that I think is always forgotten by the I'm not going to call anybody names, but by some of the other people in the blockchain space, is they're not thinking about this creatively. I can do this because all the data is verifiable. If I give you an S3 endpoint to a transaction, you can get, or a block, you can get that block, but you can verify that block completely. You got the block headers. It's cryptographically, you can verify that your data you're getting is actually sound without having to download everything yourself. So one of the things that we're doing in Teranote as well, and I think this needs more research, definitely, but we are able to see the Teranote from a certain point. So we can see, we're, I think, at block 950,000 something now, maybe a little bit above on mainnet. You could see the Teranote at block 950,000 and have it up and running in minutes. That's not true. Maybe 30, 40 minutes. It takes some time to load all that data, but it's not going to take 2 weeks to get it up and running. And if you're creating those seeds yourself, which we'll also have tools for, and we'll teach everybody how to do that, you can cryptographically verify that your seeds are correct, and therefore you never have to do an IBD ever again. So we are running some of these nodes in the association. We are actually having those nodes create these seeds for every single block. So from block 0 up to block 950,000, you'll be able to cryptographically verify that everything is correct. Anybody that runs that same service that we've created has exactly the same data. So you can also verify that's all correct. So there are these new things that are very, very new that we still have to play with, and we have to work with the miners to do that, to be much more flexible. So you can it will be easier for a miner, to jump in and out of the network, because you don't have to do an IBD if you want to join.
I want to add to that too, that, this is why, 3 years ago now, I think we started to envision the whole jungle bus dynamic. And it was in preparation for the fact that it would be impossible for the average person to keep a full node in sync. Now, granted, we were a little bit early, but what Jungle Bus is designed to do is give sort of an interface bridge to app developers who want easy access to that information. And it's just a, kind of gorilla pool guaranteed commercializable endpoint for people to get whatever data that they want and then run their own light index of that data on their own server, such that, they're just running, pretty simple infrastructure on their own small server, but able to connect directly to the huge part of the network. Now, about like data size in general, I firmly believe that data is the most valuable commodity in the world today. And so for all the people talking about wanting their node to be small, wanting to prune, and freaking out that they're going to have to spend, you see small blockers saying, what am I supposed to buy another terabyte hard drive once every 2 years or whatever? It's like, well, bro, that's like $80. And, the value of the blockchain is the data on the blockchain. If you look at every self-made billionaire of the last 20 years, they did it by controlling, mining for, and reselling data. So think about everybody that started broke and became a billionaire over the last 20 years. They did it in the data economy. Data is money. And, for me, as the Gorilla Pool's ethos is we want all the data. We don't want to prune anything. We will run a prune node for efficiency's sake or whatever for proposing blocks, but we will keep a deep codex and multiple copies of all of the blockchain data, because I think that that's the thing that most people are still missing about real value.
And actually, so this is something that we need to talk about, Kurt. But there are ways of hooking something like Jungle Bus directly into Teranode. So have Teranode feed Jungle Bus directly, but also
Excellent.
read from Jungle Bus directly.
Mm.
So that you can actually make your Teranode simpler, because if you're running Jungle Bus anywhere, you're storing all the transactions or most of the transactions, and so you can integrate them in a way that makes the operation of Teranode actually simpler by still having. And you could run maybe one Jungle Bus for 4 Teranodes, and they all share the same data.
Interesting.
And things like so that's. But this is also comes back to what you said about services. Somebody could be running this data lake that has all the data, all the transactions somewhere, and sells that as a service to people who are running Teranodes, which means that you don't have to store the transactions in Teranode at all, because you use this external service to get them when you need them. Because there's always this interplay. If I am announcing a block and you're missing something from a block, you need to request that transaction. Why you need to you don't need to request that from me. You can request that from anybody, because you can take the data, you can hash it, get the transaction ID, you can verify that it's actually in the block. So that becomes the whole network becomes a lot more decentralized than only having these Teranodes. You can have other services in there as well, interplaying with this whole thing.
That's a really good point. I like that.
And some of the points you made there, Kurt, about the entrepreneurial ideas with data. I mean, maybe that's really a great place we can go with this conversation right now. I mean, if you guys have any ideas about that, you could help to seed people with ideas for entrepreneurs with what's to come here with Teranode.
Well, one of the things that we're also working on at the BSVA is not just Teranode, but it's also this. So there's multiple ways of attacking the problem. We're also developing all these overlays, also together with Gorilla Pool. And what you can imagine there, for instance, if we start doing identity on chain, which basically means that you have something like a DID, decentralized identifier, W3C standard, and everybody's talking about that, and there's governments integrating this stuff, and going to sovereign identities and things like that. We could have an overlay network, and this is what we're building now. You could have all these nodes, these servers that are running all over the world, and they're synchronizing with each other, and they're actually only holding all the transactions that contain DIDs in them. So now we have Teranodes decentralized all over the world, processing all this data. It's going into Jungle Buses, it's going to other indexers, but we can also have these overlays that contain only the IDs, and they synchronize, so would have service in Latin America, Europe, US, Asia, all over the place, and it's all cryptographically verifiable. So you can create these networks on top to make access to that specific data much faster, much easier, and safer. And you can imagine that for much more. So I don't know, years ago, I think just want to takes a little bit of credit. I think I did the first version of Jungle Bus. I built that for Kurt. But I was working with the guys in the team. They're also on all the Be Social stuff, the Bitcoin schema, which is now being used. I think the the tree chat, for instance, is built on those protocols. But we could also set up, these Be Social networks. We could build a completely decentralized social network, and that could be in overlays where people. It's a little bit similar to, I forget what it's called. There are these decentralized social networks. We can build that on top with no permission, completely permissionless. You run one of the servers yourself. I actually run one of those servers with Blog Post Network. Is reading all the tree chat messages in, and you can just see it there. It's very old. It's not working well anymore. I have to update it, but it's basically on that same network, and we can create overlays for this stuff. It all goes onto Teranote. It will all be in Jungle Bus. But we can also have these overlays, and then we can create applications very differently than we do now. And the sky becomes the limit. So this is what Degin, I think I saw him on the call as well, is building the distributed application team together with the guys from Gorillaful and Babbage. A shout out to Babbage. They've been a very big part of that as well. And all those tools, those overlays, the libraries, everything that we're doing there is to move into this world of scale. Because at 1 million TPS, you don't care about 99.999% of those transactions, but the transactions you do care about, you want to have very, very quick access to. So that's also part of, it's not just Teranote, there's a whole, I think we call it the Mandela network, where they've been called a couple of times. So you have the Teranotes in the center, then you have the overlays, you'll have Jungle Bus. Outside, you can have applications connecting to that. So we can get a very, very rich ecosystem where we can start integrating this thing into everything. Payment, there's discussions now also with, I think Coinbase brought it up. There's this HTTP code, the 402 payment required. That's actually built into our libraries. So I believe, wasn't it you, Casey? I think you showed, no, I think it was somebody actually did an integration with Django. And it's very easy. We have interns working for us now that have applications up and running in a day, maybe another day of debugging, and then you have an application that's running on our stack, putting transactions on chain, doing all this stuff, but it's all in overlays. It's being cached, so it's very, very responsive. So we're going to be building applications very differently in the coming years.
So the 402 error code, are you saying that you have a solution for that?
Yeah, we have a middleware. I think we only have it in JavaScript now. So if you have a website that's JavaScript, we have it in you could probably integrate it to Next.js or Express or anything like that. So you could say you can only access this page or this website if you pay me, and that middleware will just reject unless you present a transaction with a payment. So we'll give you a 402 payment required, and if you have the plugin in your browser, the payment will be made, and you access that thing. So it becomes very, very seamless. That's what we're doing with the BSV desktop and the BSV mobile, which should be called MetaNet desktop and MetaNet mobile. We had to change those names because those are trademarked. But we'll have these tools that you can easily integrate this into your services to be able to take micropayments, not on, hey, you want to see the rest of this article, click here. No, just into the HTTP protocol directly.
So this allows any website to accept micropayments?
Yes.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, but this is the same. This is similar to what Kurt said earlier. We're in the 90s, so a lot of stuff has to be figured out, and we're building all the building blocks to do this. But now, other builders have to take these tools and build them into their website, into their applications, into their mobile apps, and the sky is the limit.
Yeah, now would be a good time if you guys want to come up and ask any questions or comments. I'm going to approve this, Alex, if you want to come up here right now. I'm not familiar with you, so just go ahead and ask.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
But go ahead.
Alex?
Yo, GM everyone, how you doing?
Yo.
Really just hoping to learn from more of you guys. I mean, especially Kurt, we had some nice spaces on QuickSwap, discuss Bitcoin and what should be done.
Oh man, scale it up. I think the whole blockchain community is debating, how small to make make their infrastructure, and how to throttle and limit things. And then you've got groups, a few groups like your Solana types and people from Sui and some of these other places that have some ideas about scaling, but ultimately, we're still, we need to talk more about serious orders of magnitude, more scalability in order to really change the world, bring more than our weird niche of blockchain people in. And, like there's a ton of proof of concept stuff out there. Like you can look at Ethereum ICOs from 2017 and 2018, bunch of killer business ideas, a lot of really, really genuinely cool ideas. And almost all of them are gone. In fact, the only ICO that I can think of that actually did anything is probably the Brave browser and the BAT token, which was a brilliant idea. They wanted to build it on Bitcoin, didn't work on Bitcoin because of scaling problems. Then Ethereum, they migrated over to Ethereum, and it worked fine until Ethereum started to come up against its own congestion issues. And ultimately, like they just wanted to have a really cool web browser company. And, they kept having this major infrastructure problem with all these blockchains. So while people like us are saying, oh, yeah, we're going to change the world and everything's going to be awesome, people, they essentially call our bluff and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds great. And then they spend, in some cases, millions of dollars trying to build out a company and then realize, hey, these blockchains don't work. And so truly, a company like Brave or lots of others, like, I mean, shit, there's probably 1,000 really cool ICOs that just went away because they couldn't work on Ethereum and they just quit. Like, let's resurrect those things. Let's bring them over to BSV in the Teranode era and start doing some of the crazy stuff that people have been talking about for a decade, but nobody's actually been able to do. Like, that's the big excitement.
And I think also so we've been talking to some companies that have been in blockchain for years, and these guys almost gave up until they talked to us, and then they were just blown away. And multiple discussions with entrepreneurs that just are blown away when we tell them what's possible today and where we're going. And what I'm super excited about is the use cases that are not related directly to blockchains. A lot of the stuff that we've done is like NFTs and DeFi and all that stuff, and I'd love to see all that on BSV as well. Somebody mentioned pumped up fun the other day, which is, I think, my head is in code most of the time, so I'm not paying that much attention to all this stuff anymore. But that's something on Solana. We can blow them out of the water on BSV just today. But the thing that I'm really excited about is the real world applications that we can do. And one of the companies that we're moving on to BSV is doing something in healthcare. So you can, and we're not talking about putting healthcare data on chain or anything like that. That's something else. But imagine this: you go to a doctor, the doctor gives you a prescription for some medicine, and oftentimes it's something that you shouldn't have too much of because it's dangerous. And so they'll give you a prescription, and you go to 3 pharmacies and get your subscription filled out 3 times. We want to fix that. So what do? You put that prescription in a token. You put it on chain. When you go to the pharmacy, you spend that token, and there's a verifiable record of what happens, completely private, of course, but there's no way to cheat any of that. But if you want to do that in healthcare at any scale, you're talking about millions a day per country. Just in a small country, we'll have lots and lots of these transactions per day. So you have to be able to take that. And the company that we're talking to, like I said, those guys almost gave up, and they're now building on BSV, and they're loving it. We're getting very good feedback from them. We asked them for a comparison, to make a comparison to BSV. I think we were on ZK Sync before. They were on Ethereum, we went to ZK Sync. They were just giving up. And everything works now. And that's what I'm excited about. These are real world applications that we can actually start building to make the world really a better place.
And Siggy, to your point, I think e-commerce and just in general commerce, if we can somehow attach an identity feature to it where we can verify users minus the Silk Road event that happened many years ago, I think this is what's needed if you're thinking in terms of retail users, because everybody wants to make they want to interact in the commerce, some sort of way and make money. And that's what's definitely needed.
So I wrote an article 2 weeks ago about tokenizing genetics. And, I'm big into biohacking. I like my whole other hobby is like fitness optimization. And, I work with athletes and things. I'm a Brazilian jiu-jitsu coach. And so I worked with lots of people that are still, like serious pros or wannabe pros. I'm a little bit old myself, but I still like to keep my feet in that world for my own health. And so one of the things that I came up with is genetic data. Now there's, each person has petabytes of data in their bodies. and they're individually unique. You have 100% unique footprint. And I framed the article talking about the 23andMe bankruptcy and how people with their genetics in those databases might get their genetics sold in bankruptcy to China or to anybody else that ends up buying the bid. But ultimately, that it is a huge thing. Like using things like homomorphic encryption and stuff, you can leverage the value of your genetics without doxing your identity or without giving anything other than what makes your genetics unique. So you can sell the individual parts or lease the individual parts for various research projects, or imagine there's a group of people somewhere in the world that is completely resistant to some disease. Well, why is that? Well, if they could tokenize their own genetic data, they could lease it to labs to allow the research to be done on their genetics while still maintaining their privacy, but also by monetizing. They can be getting money back for the lease of their genetics while they're being studied, and then it can develop various therapies through things like CRISPR or potentially other like next gen vaccine therapies or whatever that make people that have a major genetic predisposition to a disease and say, hey, it's been solved because of this new breakthrough in genetics. And so I go over how there is both a privacy perk but also a monetization perk, and there's lots of really cool stuff that can be done when you have a really scalable solution that also is has native encryption, natively private, and allows you to also monetize at the native level. Like there's so many opportunities with the kind of businesses that most people aren't thinking about yet, and that's just one of them. Like there's any number of similar things that where you are the unique identifier, you are the NFT. And there's a business model there. You gotta come up with it. You gotta market it. You gotta come up with the business.
I think that's something that WorldCoin did, but in a private way.
Yeah. Instead, yeah. Sam Altman wants your iris for who knows what.
But that's a good point though, because everything that we're working on is to give power back to the people, you're the sovereign owner of anything. You're the sovereign owner of your genetic data. You're the sovereign owner of your identity. And the way that the BRC 100 wallet toolbox and the stuff in the overlays that we're working on is it gives you very, very simple primitives to do this stuff extremely privately. So you can, if I talk to Kurt or I want to share some data with Kurt, we'll share public keys. We'll create a shared secret out of that. We have a completely private conversation, and we can share data on chain, off chain, verifiable in tokens. We can do all this stuff. That's the kind of tools that we're building. So we're building all the tool sets to be able to do this. But I would also encourage everybody to just start simply though, because there's so much stuff missing. I mean, if I go onto one of my kids who's not 18, he goes onto a website, wants to buy some alcohol. What do? Are you over 18? Click yes. So you click the button, of course. You're not going to click the other button, and I'm going to buy some alcohol. Why isn't that secured in a private way with identity? So I go onto that site and says, hey, do you have a decentralized identifier? Yes, I do. Do you have a certificate that proves to me that you're over 18? Yes, I do. Oh, I'm going to check. Oh, that's actually verified by the government in the US. Excellent. Now you can buy it. And that can be seamless, super fast, super safe. But of course, the simplest use case is payments. So micropayments with tokens. So M&EE, those guys have the first US dollar token on BSV. They're working very hard of getting that into being regulated so we can use it everywhere. But you can imagine that. That's also a fantastic use case, just to be able to pay 1 cent or 10 cents in US dollars everywhere. That's also a fine use case. That's fine. And going back to what Kirk said a little bit earlier, but discussions that's happening in BTC now, we don't care what you're doing. If you have a transaction that's 100 bytes or it's 100 megabytes, we don't care. You're paying a little bit more for 100 megabytes, and the miners will be glad to have it. It doesn't matter. And the way that Teranode is designed, it doesn't care either. it will ingest that data, it will process that transactions, and after that, there's no in Teranote, there's no difference between 100 byte or 100 megabyte transaction. The processing is exactly the same. So if we're doing a million TPS, 100 byte transaction, a million TPS, a megabyte or 100 megabyte transaction, it doesn't matter. Bring it. Let's do it.
So can I ask a question on the digital identity note when it comes to micropayments? I don't remember exactly, Siggy, I'm not sure if you were part of Tonic Pow's inception or not, but it feels so weird to share CoinGeek articles without being able to use Tonic Pow. That was one of my favorite platforms in BSB. But with Teranode's new scaling and all these capabilities, can this help revive or, supercharge platforms like Tonic Pow and getting rid of the fraud that was happening with people farming clicks, or how can we revive that platform?
Absolutely. I actually work with those guys. I think I learned to program Go at Tonic Pow with Luke and Austin at the time. So that's where I got started. So yeah, I love that. And we together we built also the SPV wallet, which was called the Bucks wallet, which is now SPV wallet. The BSVA bought that. But yes, so but there's a couple of primitives that we need before we can do that, and that has to do with we have to have identity everywhere. Everybody has to have an identity, and everybody has to be able to share that very easily. So we need standards for that. And if we have these standards and we have these wallets that have that built in, everything can become seamless. And I can't speak to. Kurt is much closer to. I think Luke is working for Kurt now, Gorilla Pool. So, or with Gorilla Pool, he's also working with us. Whether that would be revived or not, but I imagine with these new primitives that we're building, it will be much easier to do that.
Yeah. No, Siggy's exactly right. Tonic Pow was a really great idea, but then Luke, primarily Luke, was spending a lot of time basically vetting people that were trying to circumvent and the typical thing that you see with these kind of things is you got your bot farms, then you got your guys with click groups, and so somebody would create a Telegram group and share links into the Telegram group, and there's 50 people there that all just click the thing, and so there was a lot of just trying to game and empty people's wallets, and he didn't really have a profit motive to sit and work through all those problems, especially with everything else that he's up to, and that we also were kind of working with him on. And so we've pivoted to focusing on, okay, we really need to nail down a lot of these underlying identity systems. One of them is actually that we've developed is called Sigma Identity, which if anybody knows what Siggy looks like in real life and finds the Sigma logo, it is inspired by my favorite bearded Icelandic man. So
Really?
Yes. Yeah. Were you not aware of that?
No, I wasn't. No.
I'll have to pull that up. I'm not sure where that exists, like the logo that is right now, but I'll do a little digging around. But so basically we've had to map some of these things out so that they're connected to Bitcoin schema. And, so you have like creator identities, you have purchaser identities, and then you have various types of user identities. And it's it's kind of a complicated thing. And really it's kind of like trying to pre-plan, much like Satoshi. Okay, how do we generalize these things such that anybody can build anything with them? Like, we don't want to create a walled garden because we made a bunch of arbitrary decisions. We want to make everything very, very simple, very, very low level, and very, very generalized, so that, again, some creative entrepreneur will see what it is and say, oh, cool, I'm going to implement this with it. And that he doesn't have to, solicit the devs and create a pull request to do, all these things. We don't want people to have to negotiate with, the tech before they just build the thing that they want to build. And so, to answer your question, and also bolster what Siggy was saying, yes, we've had to basically take one step lower, help develop SDKs, help develop lower level tooling, and then work our way back to building out things like identity protocols, but also lots of other things tangential to that, so that businesses like Tonic Pow don't just get murdered by people in Telegram groups or just click bot farms and whatever else, because it's a huge problem with the internet in general. But then when you monetize it, people have an incentive to scam, and so that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, I think you're not the old guy, Kurt. You're quite a bit younger than I am, actually. My memory is not as good as yours, I think. So it's a couple of years ago, I was working with Tonic Power. One of the biggest problems that actually we were having at Tonic Power at this time is that the tools were missing. And so we had to build all these tools, and that's where the Bucks came out, which is now SPV Wallet, had to be built because we're lacking something to run the back end of Tonic Power. And that's a big hit for a small company like that to have to develop these things. And I just want to give a shout out to Kurt and the guys at Gorilla Pool, like Luke and David, Dave Case, that are building a lot of these things, very low level primitives that are needed to make this happen, because it doesn't exist. Because all these other projects, people immediately go to something like Ethereum and smart contracts. And what do? I want to hash this file. I'm going to create a smart contract, and I'm going to store my hash in a smart contract. That's the dumbest way to do it, but that's why you do it on Ethereum. So we don't want to do that. We want to do it in a smart way. But all the tools to make that easy to integrate into application had to be built. And so over the last years, we've been, not enough. With a very small group of people have been frantically building all this stuff out. And I think we're getting very, very close to be able to, start the explosion. I think there was a meetup that I unfortunately missed. I think the Tonic Power came out of the Cambrian. So the Cambrian, I think we need a new Cambrian explosion on top of everything that we have now. All the tools
Amen.
that we're doing now. And seriously, we this summer we had a 3 interns working with us just to creating demos. So we're gonna be setting that up on the BSVA documentation site, where you can actually look at these demos, use cases, and there's going to be example code how to do stuff. But we just have real working applications, completely open source. Anybody can take them, fork them, build your own, and they're meant to show you how to do this stuff very, very easily. And our interns were, like I said, they were able to fire up applications in 1 or 2 days. Couple that with AI now, and we've done all the hard work. So you don't have to have your Claude Code or your ChatGPT do the hard stuff, because it's probably going to mess that up. But to create a nice front end, nice application, and then we have MCPs that you can hook into them, so they know they can speak the language of Bitcoin and all the libraries and everything that we have. So you can tie this stuff up together, and anybody can build. Our lead ambassador, Crescenda, she is not technical. She doesn't know how to code. And she built a website built on Bitcoin, I think also in a day. So if she can do it, all of you can do it too. And you have to start building.
I'd love to see what she built. Haven't heard from her in a while. We need to get her on a space one of these days and help people that are just getting started, because that's, I think, another topic that would be really good for more of the laymen that are listening.
We could go.
Absolutely.
We could go through like the 10 best or 15 best failed ICOs on Ethereum on a space, and just be like hash out ideas that were not failed because they were bad ideas or bad companies, but just because the chain didn't work, and they went out of business. So that would be a cool one, man.
Crucial is that to everything? I mean, with everything going down with stable coins, how big
can you start over from the top? We didn't quite hear you. At least I didn't.
Oh, sorry, did I break up? Yeah, it was just the other day you on the association announced that you got certified. The BSV association got certified with the ISO 27. Was it 001 or something certification? And how does that affect everything? How big a deal is that for everything?
Well, I have to
stable coins and.
We have to put it a little bit in perspective, because that certification is basically on our processes and on the stewardship of the protocol. So that it's very important just to get the basis correct, because we're building on a set in stone protocol. So if you build a business, we're not going to change anything underneath of you. So the certification is mainly for the processes around that. and making sure that we do that correctly. One of the things that I want to do moving forward is get a certification for all the software that we're building as well, and all the libraries, overlays, including Teranode, that we're doing. That will be something that I'm looking at next year. So this is the certification that we got is mainly for the protocol, not for the software yet. But I think that is important if you're starting to talk to enterprises and governments. There's plenty of governments that want to do stuff. A lot of governments are playing around with the blockchain solutions for everything. There's you have I think my brother talked to somebody I think it was the old president of Estonia that actually put Estonia, the digital government initiative there. Of course, they're not using blockchain; they're doing differently. But they were super excited to hear what we're doing. And in the future, when governments wants to do that, they have to have a base layer of trust, a digital notary, a truth machine, and they're not going to want to work with some hobbyists that are building things in their spare time. And so these certifications become important when we're talking to them. So that is going to be important moving forward, and it's going to be important when we have discussions with larger corporations. But I think we shouldn't want to jump the gun. I think we have to do the fun stuff first. We have to do the payments. We have to do NFTs. Let's replicate pump.fun. Let's do the one sat, because we have to get all this stuff right. No big corporation went on Ethereum, when it was still young. They did it after all the big ICOs, the big money, the price exploded. Then they were interested. So if we want to have the same on BSV, I believe that we need to do that stuff first. So this ISO is going to be important moving forward, and we're definitely going to be working on that. But let's do some small fun stuff first and actually prove that it works, and we show the world that it works and that it can actually scale, and you can have big applications that make big money. Then the Nikes, the Adidas, the Ciscos, they will be interested and they'll come.
I think we need an e-commerce system, a business, something similar to eBay or Amazon, a small version of that with identities and stuff. That's my opinion.
Why don't you build it?
Joel had built something very similar to that with the MetaNet ICU called the shop floor, which was a great start. Did you guys ever check that out? Did anyone ever see it?
I did not.
Yeah, so I really recommend you guys going and checking that out, and maybe somebody collaborating with Joel to get that going, because it was basically a version of Amazon and at the bare bones ready to go. So it was very exciting.
But I think if we have to also be honest, is that a lot of the applications that were built in the past, just like Tonic Pow, a lot of the time was spent on building these basic things that are very hard to build, take a lot of time, and that steals your time from building your business and your applications and the actual stuff that you want to sell. So if Joel would start today, and I hope he will actually restart that, build it on the new infrastructure, with one sats and on overlays, and with all the libraries and everything that we have now, it'll be much easier. And then he can use most of his time focusing on his business, on the UX of his website, on the products that he's selling, instead of actually worrying too much about the underlying Bitcoin infrastructure.
Yep.
And just to say that we've actually worked with a couple of companies. I'm not going to mention any names, but they're moving away from running their own SV nodes as an underlying infrastructure that runs their business, moving over to the stack on the overlay stack and BRC-100 wallets, and they're basically slashing their infrastructure costs. And with that, they can then focus again on their applications. We have worked with multiple companies already that have done that, and they have great benefits.
That's awesome. I did post the shop floor up in the nest. It is still there. So if anyone wants to check on that and see about building that out properly, it'd be something that's a great start. Anybody else have to come up, and you're welcome to request, and I'll let you up.
Just invite you guys also. I don't think Kurt and I are afraid of being offended or controversy, so you can also ask hard questions if you want to.
Yeah.
Well, my hard question is like, what you know, what exactly are the people that are again? I mean, you know, what is the biggest criticisms right now that you're hearing about Teranode? And maybe like there's some huge risks that we're not seeing that we should be aware of that are major criticisms. I mean, what are some of the things that are genuine? I mean, is there anything that is genuine that we should be aware of?
Man, I don't know. I think there's so much weird propaganda that exists that, like, you know, it's really hard to figure out when somebody actually has a genuine criticism, and there certainly are genuine criticisms. I mean, we've given feedback and, you know, pull requests and stuff on Teranote after doing some testing on it, and, you know, a lot of people have criticized the fact that you know, it's not really, it's closed source, and, you know, I think these people are pretending to not hear when someone like Siggy or Aus says, like, yeah, it's in active development, and, you know, if you're somebody who actually has an interest or some talent, like, you can be invited to the repo, you can be invited to contribute. It's just not currently open source, and, you know, like, so there's lots of stuff like that where, you know, you just have a tremendous amount of concern trolling on things. But, you know, like, I think the real criticisms are happening among the few dozen people that actually do have their hands on the software. And this is people at BSVA, this is people at TAL, this is people at Gorilla Pool. There's a few other adjacent people that are, you know, contributing various things. And, you know, and some people will look at that and be like, it's just all, you know, it's a bunch of buddies. And it's like, well, yeah, but it's kind of how every open source project ends up being too. Like, 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people, which is typically, you know, maybe a dozen people, or in some cases a little more, but in a lot of cases it's less. And there's huge projects that end up working that way. And so, you know, I think that's a weird one. And then, you know, then you look at all the people that seem to be, you know, basically just paid propagandists. I really can't come up with any other possible explanation for the amount of focus that, like, random cartoon characters on X, who, you know, whose entire job is to, you know, talk about 5 subjects on BSV and how we're all, like, you know, retarded or just like scammers or whatever. And it's like, hey man, like, I don't know anybody actually working in BSV from an infrastructure standpoint that isn't super excited about what they're doing and super excited to see what the world looks like when all this stuff gets put into the hands of real entrepreneurs, especially given all, like, the incredible amount of tumult. You know, it's like looking at people that run shipping lines in, like, the North Sea and be like, they're just, you know, like, they don't really, you know, it's like one of the most difficult jobs in the world ever. Like, you have a huge chance of dying and nobody knowing you existed because that was the job that you chose. And I think that's really BSV in a lot of ways. And, you know, so I don't know. I think a lot of the criticisms are purely AstroTurf. And then a lot of the genuine criticisms, you know, like it was said, Siggy said there was a bug found today. Like, that starts as criticism. That starts as somebody running a thing and saying, hey, I think I found somewhere where you screwed up. And when discussed professionally and going through the process, like, that problem gets solved. And that's how it works.
Absolutely. And I think just one, but I still think there's one thing, elephant in the room that has to be mentioned, because Teranote is relying on the design in the white paper. And what the white paper talks about is that basically just one chain, and the longest chain wins, which means the most hash power. And we don't have the most hash power. So it's very easy to attack us. And one of the things that we have had to do also in the last couple of weeks is harden Teranote for that. And in an ideal world, would we be the main network with the most hash power? It would be a lot more, we almost impossible to do 100-block reorg or things like that. So we've had to design some of the aspects of Teranote around the fact that we can be attacked. And Teranote is basically a streaming transaction processor. So the more security you want around the fact that you can be attacked, and we are a minority chain, the more expensive it becomes to run a node. If we would be the majority SHA-256 chain, we could run Teranote for like 1/10 of the price of what we do now. And so that is I think that is a real criticism. Is like, what the hell are you doing with your tiny little chain with a tiny little hash power? You can be blown away by you buy one of these BTC miners just for fun, and they won't even notice. That is I think that's a real criticism, and that is something that has had us have to do some software engineering that we probably otherwise wouldn't have had to do. And I've had some discussions. I don't know, there's been some threads last couple of weeks with some hardcore BTC guys, and some of them had valid points. It's like, what we're doing is hard, and there are some risks in there. And okay, so and they actually helped us think about things slightly differently and architect things maybe a little bit differently. But that is something that does make it harder. So let's become the majority hash chain, so we don't have to worry about that, and then we can really take over the world.
Can I, before I go to JPaps, I had one question about, from my vantage point, I've been seeing a lot of momentum with financial institutions with this Metallicus blockchain. Do you guys know anything about their scaling capabilities and, transactions per second for financial institutions? And how does that compare to the BSV ecosystem?
I am not aware. I cannot speak to that.
Kurt, do you know anything about it? Because I did post in the net what Craig Wright specifically said about it in the nest, but just curious for this conversation if you had any insights on that. Because
was it Metallica? You kind of broke up in my ear. Was that what you said?
yes.
Okay, I don't know a ton about it. I have taken a sort of a cursory glance at it. Same as looking at the FedNow project and a bunch of other, like, there's lots of people that are doing things that are sort of based in the blockchain space, but trying to take it the direction of kind of the way that Hyperledger and stuff was built out, like essentially a private chain. Now Metallicus, I don't know. I don't see much interesting about it other than the people that allege to be involved. But I don't know. It kind of reminds me of XRP in the same way, where it's like, okay, you've been around for 12 plus years saying that Santander and Bank of America and the Central Bank of London are all working together, but when, where, what's the actual evidence that any of that stuff is actually happening? And I just don't see it. And from what I've seen on that project, it looks to be the same kind of thing. And I have not taken a deep dive on any of their technical stuff. Frankly, if they had done something special from a technical standpoint, I imagine they would be discussing that first. But I've not seen anything that didn't look like, primarily focused on marketing speak from my viewpoint. But I could be wrong. I admittedly have not done a deep dive. After my cursory glance just kind of made me feel like it was not serious.
Yeah, I just see them talking to a lot of high level people, and in terms of scalability, what were their capabilities and all that. I just wasn't sure if you knew anything about it. So thank you.
But I think that just to maybe answer the question generically, in a generic way, is that a lot of these a lot of people that started chains. So you have actually the I think the most honest one I always think is this Litecoin. Somebody just forked it off, changed a little bit, and to create a new chain. That's great, and that's probably one of the better ones. Except they did SegWit, which is a big mistake. But a lot of these other chains and what these groups are trying to do is they're trying to perfect and improve on the Bitcoin design, and they're doing that purely from a technical standpoint. So saying, oh, the scripting languages Bitcoin is not rich enough. So, we're going to include, like, I think what Cardano did, they have a Rust scripting language, or a Rust-based smart contracts, and the EVM and Ethereum and all these things. And I think they're completely missing the point. The reason Bitcoin is not simple because it's old, it's from 2009, and Satoshi didn't know what he was doing. That's absolutely not true. I'm more and more convinced that a deep dive into the code and deep dive into the absolute, darkest hell of trying to make this work is it's simple because it has to be able to scale. So it is important. It doesn't have loops. It doesn't have all the stuff. You know, an Australian friend of ours got a lot of criticism saying that Bitcoin is Turing complete. No, it's not. It doesn't have loops. But no, it's Turing complete in a different way. It doesn't have loops on purpose because that makes it unpredictable. It makes it not deterministic. It's much harder to determine how expensive a transaction is when you're processing it and all these things. Also, there's the Merkle tree that's in there. All this stuff is in there for scalability. If you want to create something simple, you don't need half this stuff. It's all to be able to scale, to be able to do SPV proofs, to be able to do put things in overlays and prove that your transaction is part of a block, so you don't have to download the whole block. And adding a Rust-based, super nice smart contract language into your node is just going to kill you when it starts scaling. And I think they're not thinking this way. So you have to look at this whole thing as a more complex thing. It's based in technology. It's very important, but there's also economics in there, and there's also legal aspects in there. So if if I go and print out a piece of paper and I've got Kurt's signature somewhere, and I copy paste that, put it on a contract, and say to Kurt, you now owe me $1 million, that's not going to work. That's the same with a blockchain. A blockchain doesn't take away, what is it, the 800 years of legal precedence that we have in our societies. So you have to take all of that into consideration, and then you have to think about, okay, if I have this blockchain, which is basically a truth machine, it's a digital notary, it's a proof that something happened. It doesn't actually mean that I know Kurt owes me $1 million, but if I put it on chain, for instance, it means that it's on chain, it's time stamped. And if I could steal his identity, but we still probably go to court, and he will probably tell me, no, you're not going to get $1 million from me. So there has to be a holistic view of the whole thing. And if you want to scale a blockchain, you have to keep it simple. And that's what Bitcoin is. It's simple by design. There's nothing missing in it. And I've had discussions with people that are a lot smarter than me that have PhDs in cryptography and have been playing with this stuff. There's a lot of people playing in the background with Bitcoin script and all this stuff. And they basically admit you can do anything you want with this Bitcoin script. Yes, it's a little bit harder than if you go into a Cardano and their Rust virtual machine, whatever the thing they have. But that's not going to scale. So you can build your application on that, and you're going to die. So use a little bit more brain power, design your things a little bit differently, and now you can put it on a chain that can actually scale almost infinitely. And I think a lot of people that are only focused on the technology, they're solving all the wrong problems. The problems that we are solving have nothing to do with any of this stuff. They have everything to do with scalable system. Google didn't win the search wars because because they had a better algorithm. Yes, they did have a better algorithm, but they actually won because they were able to run their search on tens of thousands of servers. They solved the problem differently. They didn't optimize the algorithm. They optimized actually how to spread the load over all these machines. And that's what we're doing too. And you cannot do that if you make everything too complicated. If you have an account-based system with shared state, all that stuff, you can't do that. So in its simplicity, Bitcoin is just awesome. It is there. We don't need all this other stuff.
I just want to piggyback a little bit. So one of the things that stood out to me when I looked at Metallicus is that they had lots and lots of ideas from lots of blockchains, and they claim to be a blockchain interoperability layer. And that's immediately, like you were talking about, just like a wild amount of complication just to make any of that work. And so they had a lot of buzzwords like, okay, we've got EVM, like you can program an EVM, so you can use Solidity language. And then we also got this thing from this blockchain over here. And it reminded me of the early days of the EOS ecosystem. Now, EOS was there was a big Dan Larimer project, who actually, it's funny, Dan Larimer and Satoshi had the most contentious relationship because Larimer very early looked at Bitcoin and was arguing with Satoshi on the forums and telling him, okay, here's all the things that Bitcoin can't do, and here's how I would do it better. But he's kind of a big ego blowhard guy. And Satoshi is actually to Dan Larimer that Satoshi says the famous line that if you don't understand, I don't have time to explain it to you. Sorry. And when you look at what EOS did, it was the same kind of thing. It was like, it kind of reminded me of like German engineering. You know, like there's a reason a Mercedes-Benz is beautiful, but it's not gonna last nearly as long as a Toyota Corolla. And it's just because they come from a completely different design ethic, like deep level engineering, that, you know, the Toyota is designed to go 1,000,000 miles and the Mercedes is designed to do maybe 150,000, but look really, really nice as you're doing it. And that's how every Dan Larimer project shook out. And the Metallicus ecosystem really reminded me of the same thing. It was just like this massive amount of over engineering of all of these primitives, and it was just essentially a Rube Goldberg machine. And that's how, actually, it's part of the reason why EOS fell apart too, is they had so many things stacked up on top of each other, and, you know, trying to do it with fast blocks and trying to do all this stuff with they had a variation on proof of stake and the way that they did validation and all this other stuff. And what they failed to understand is that sometimes simplicity is the most elegant thing that you can produce. And that's the Toyota Corolla, that's the Glock pistol, that's lots of things where it's like, I don't know, it's kind of rattly, and it's like, yes, but it is going to go 1,000,000 miles before it breaks down, or you're going to be able to put 1,000,000 bullets downrange before it fails. And that's much more important when you're designing a system like that. And so Bitcoin is the simplest generalist version of the idea, and then that allows people to create all the big ideas themselves. You have to let people competitively build all that stuff, because if you over-engineer everything, you know, it's like the communist economy. This is what the Soviets thought they could do. They're like, okay, look, if the painters union is properly managed to do this, we won't waste any paint anywhere, you know. And it's just like, it's insane. It's an insane amount of micromanagement, and it's inefficient because of that micromanagement.
Absolutely. But I also think what we also need to do, and will be very off, is if we are building an application, and like a social media application, do we really need to put everything on chain? So even if we can, we'll accept it. You can put your 4 megabyte JPEG on chain. You're fine. We'll take it. But do you have to? Do you really need to do that? Or is it enough to just put a hash on chain to prove that you had that thing at that time? So we need to be pragmatic about that as well, and think about the economics. It's much cheaper to put a hash on chain than put a 4 megabyte JPEG. So I think that's also something we need to do, because I know Degin's on the call as well. He's been helping one of the interns with some of these demo applications that we've been building, and there are so many interesting ways that he's blowing my mind every time with doing tokenizations differently. We don't need to, like this prescriptions that we're talking about, this medical prescription that you give out, that can be a super simple, I think we call it a hash chain token. It doesn't need signatures. You don't need any complicated stuff. The actual data lives somewhere else, but you have the proof that the thing exists. You create complete privacy. So even if we have a chain that accepts everything, you could probably, I think what the biggest thing is 4 gigabytes you can put into a transaction, or push data 4 or something like that. You can, but do you really have to? And sometimes scripts that are 6 opcodes actually just do their job. Just do that. Use that. You don't need any VME. You don't need a smart contract. You don't need any of that stuff. And so your application might have a little bit more logic, but why is that not okay? Because what you're actually after is you're after that timestamping, that hashing, that proof, that digital notary that proves that this happened the way that you say it happened. So we also have to think about that, though.
I just had one more thing to add on the Metallicus thing, and then we'll go to JPAPS. I'm sorry. But I just see them, talking about all these partnerships that they're creating with credit unions and stuff for regulated stable coins. And this morning I watched a video of Russia just accused the US of planning a financial reset that could wipe out our savings, retirement, and dollar-based assets using crypto and gold in these stable coins. So do you guys know anything about that? And how do stable coins that would be tied to BSV prevent that from happening?
I think it again reminds me of XRP. Everybody's got partners. It's the same thing with Cardano and all these ecosystems. It's always a couple of guys out there talking about, hey, here's our back channel deals and here's our partnerships. This is actually like really since the ICO era, it was the same thing. You get people would throw up, all right, let's put the, all right, we're working with Google, we're working with Facebook, we're working with all these people. And it was like, you know, they had some weird tangential relationship to these big companies, but they were using it as a way to leverage people into thinking, oh my God, the future is now, I need to buy the coin. And I still to this day have seen almost nothing from any blockchain anywhere that looked like legitimate business development roadmap stuff that was going to turn into real business. And really, if you think about it, there's what, 20,000 blockchains out there, and how much real business is going on blockchains. And it's, aside from these treasury companies, you know, your sailor type companies, I don't see any real world business using blockchains for anything. I'd even argue that they're, you know, not really using the blockchain in their business model either. It's just, you know, the derivative idea that the coin exists is the business model. But, you know, that's, I don't know. So I just kind of look at that and I see very unserious people making business deals that, you know, seek to benefit themselves. Now, one of the major exceptions here, I actually think that companies like Circle and companies like Tether really, really want to win the game that they're playing. And they do actually, they filled the niche of global payments using blockchains in a way that is novel. It's not particularly scalable, but for the niche that they fill, they're doing a lot of volume, especially if you measure that volume in dollars rather than transactions. But they do fill a need. And I think stable coins are one of, if not the most obvious places where there is a business model that could be created today. I swear this is going to be the third time now that I'm saying you guys need to read my articles, but I also wrote an article in the last month. I came up with a concept called MoneyGram, which just like the company MoneyGram, but I spelled it MNEE Gram, and explain exactly how we can decentralize the entire concept of MoneyGram for global remittance and create a system that is way, way, way better than what anybody else is doing with stable coins or with global remittance and a whole bunch of other things. And, you know, to your question, somebody's just got to build it. I literally mapped it out. Like, the purpose of the article is like, hey, this is a business idea. I think somebody could make $1 billion with it, but it's not going to be me. I don't have time to build it, but I just want somebody to do it because it was good for the network, and it'll ultimately be good for me as a provider of infrastructure to that network. But the business is huge. Stablecoins are massive, but all this stuff, you know, Russia squawking and Trump, you know, Trump doesn't even use his computer, like, you know, so, you know, when he's talking about stablecoins and crypto and whatever, that's all. It's chatter, and I think there's a lot of value to chatter, especially socially or when you're jockeying for power. But the number of people that are doing any serious disruption, I mean, there's probably more people on this call right now than there are actual legitimate people building legitimate businesses with the technology, and that's how I see it.
And I hear, I totally agree. And I remember when I started my studies in '94, and one of the first things I did when I came into the internet is I got a floppy disk. Some of you might not even know what that is. And it had it was Mosaic, it was called, the first web browser. Put it into this computer. It was some Unix-based beast that was, and started browsing. It blew my mind. And for the rest of the '90s, it was building stuff. Rebuilding things at the university for all kinds of administration. Built a POS system there that's still being used today. I saw a couple of years ago. It's like, my God, you guys have to modernize. And I remember after the dot-com bubble and after we started building again and things started moving up, I was almost depressed. I was disappointed because the internet was being taken away from us by the marketers. And then you start getting banners all over the place, and you got all this marketing nonsense, and you got all these people talking out of their ass about things they have no idea. And I think exactly the same thing happened to blockchain. When the price got up and people started getting rich, they must be right. I have $1 million on, in paper in my bank account, so I must be right. This is great. I am an expert now, and I can tell everybody about this. I think that's what happened. But I was thinking, when Kurt was saying this, I think, and just to get back to your question, I don't think we can, if the US is going to tank the dollar and the global, we can't prevent that. It's nothing to do with us. But also relating to that and to the rest of these, I think there's a saying in English, comparison is the thief of joy. I think that's a very good one for this as well. I don't pay attention to any of this stuff anymore, because if it's true, so let's just assume it's true that this Bitcoin protocol is, scalable, and it can function and run the world economy and do all this stuff that we think it's going to do. All these other blockchains, all these other coins, all this marketing noise that's happening is irrelevant, because it's all going to die out when we start using this for real, and it starts scaling, and we start, getting, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 transactions a second, and we just keep on scaling, 1 million transactions a second, and we're just doing real work, everything else will die. So I'm just not paying any attention anymore. I used to pay a lot of attention to all the stuff, to trade, shit coins, and made a lot of money out of that and lost a lot of money. I don't do any of that anymore. I don't care. It's like, it's just a matter of time until we win, because this is the best technology. And everybody that's working on something else, they're just wasting their time. And they're going to waste their time, and they're going to become millionaires because some idiot believed in them and bought their coin, and he got an ICO. Yeah, whatever. You're going to die because you can't scale. So you cannot, it's not sustainable. And this is sustainable. And it might take longer. I'm was a couple of years ago very disappointed that we weren't actually using this for anything anymore. I mean, it's 2009 to 2025, 16 years later. And just like Kurt said, nobody's really using it for anything meaningful. Let's start doing meaningful stuff. And when we start doing that, the transaction fees come in, because we're actually saving lives. We did this POC for this medical prescriptions, and we talked to a student from Peru, where they were giving injections in the I'm gonna get the story slightly wrong, but it's like 90% correct. They were giving injections to people in the jungle, but some of these injections, they were not good. They were gone bad, and so people died. And one of the problems was that they weren't registering everything. Not everything was talking. They weren't tracking it properly. So the student took our POC. He basically built a product in 2 days, and now they're going to use that in Peru to verify all the stuff that they're doing with the medical things there. So if something happens, they can track everything. They've got the full audit trail. They can say, hey, that's a bad batch. You have to stop it. This is the kind of stuff that really matters. This is the stuff that we can put on chain. There's no other chain can do that. And when we start doing that, at scale, all this other noise becomes irrelevant. But it's going to take time.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and go to Jay Paps now, if you're there.
Yeah, I'm here. My question, you guys were kind of talking around it, was basically, is there any is there any marketing budget for BSV? Because I mean, you go on to X or even commercials on TV. Somebody is putting up some money to basically get BSV into
Casey, are you hearing anything?
Oh,
Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear him. Yeah.
Talking.
yeah, is there any kind of a budget, or is there kind of any marketing plan to get BSV out to the people? Because I mean, we know about it, but we're a very small part of the percentage of the population here. I mean, you could equate BSV to like the most wonderful mom and pop little restaurant in the world, and I mean, for the 50 or 60 people who eat there, I mean, it's the best kept secret around, right? But I mean, that restaurant is never going to grow to where it's got to grow to become super profitable or whatnot, if it never gets out to more people's ears. And BSV is to me is like virtually the same thing. It's the best tech. It's from what I understand anyway. No other blockchain from what I know, could not be the truth, but from what I know, no other blockchain has the development BSV has the level of achievement BSV has, and yet coin is not even in the top 100. And there are many people who I speak to who have never even heard of it, have no clue what this is. It's been
Yep.
very well hidden. People are very easily distracted, and the most people, which unfortunately we do need, have the attention span of a goldfish. So I mean,
JPEG, I could answer that. I mean, I have the opposite approach to what you're saying. I think that your product, that the product that you build is the marketing itself. I mean, if you think about it, think for a second. If you have a great product, could you market it? Maybe you don't have a great product. I mean, I can market BSV coin day in and day out. I can rally people to buy the coin, right? And then they're like, okay, what can I do with it?
but
The only answer becomes just hold on to it. It's gonna scale. You're gonna be able to do things. So you're asking them to speculate until a certain point. Now, if you have a business, if you have something built, you can say, I have a product. Now this becomes like a, let's say you build an eBay, right? Now your marketing becomes like look how Tesla did it, right? They had no marketing for like 10, 15 years, zero marketing. They tried it once and it failed. Now they're trying to market via Twitter, right? Via X. It's like free marketing, right? But before that 15 to like that whole stretch of time, zero marketing, just word of mouth, word of mouth. So if you have a great product, it markets itself. I mean, I just wanted to add to that.
I
Now,
hear what you're saying. I respectfully, completely disagree, because Tesla was very, very small until they started marketing it. And another thing, you may have a great business idea, you may have a great application, but you are one mind. The thing is, right now, let's just assume we're all middle of the road people here on this wherever we are.
JPEG, let me ask you, what year did they start marketing?
Well, look, honestly, it's I don't even care about Tesla. My
No,
point is this:
you're saying they marketed and then they scaled. You're
from
putting out a
from
reference. You're saying you disagree, but you're not putting any valid points.
well,
They had a
from the
zero
time,
marketing budget for many, many years.
right? But then look what happened the moment Elon Musk put Tesla into everybody's ear. Look what happened to Tesla.
Yeah,
His valuation
he was the
exploded.
one marketing. Yeah, he had a big
Right,
voice and
right.
he was marketing. That was a free marketing event. He didn't pay
It
for marketing.
Well, he kind of bought Twitter, right? I mean, when you're a public figure and you speak, people listen.
so I mean, let me jump in and answer your question, Lloyd. So we do have a marketing budget, but we have a very small marketing budget. We're good trying to do the best we can with that. And just to give you a comparison of what we're up against. So we're a very small association, and we didn't do an ICO. We don't have $1 billion in the bank to waste and all kinds of stuff. A lot of the projects, if you dig into it, a lot of the projects that are happening in other chains is because they're paying developers to do that project. That project gets built and then it dies. There's a lot of hot air, and a lot of the marketing that's happening now, and a lot of the buzz it's because coin price goes up. Look at me, I'm a millionaire. We're not interested in that. We're not marketing that at all. But if you want to compare it to something like Tesla, I would say that we are actually CATL. We're not Tesla. We're CATL. We're building the batteries that are going to make Tesla possible. So did CATL go and market itself out and say, hey, with this best batteries? No, you had to have a business. You had to have a business to do that. And I think one of the things that we're missing now is the opportunity of, you have this transaction processing beast, you have this truth machine. You can do stuff on this thing that nobody else can do. So if you're not going to build the next Tesla, what the hell's the point? Are we
Siggy, I
gonna
I agree with you, and JPEG has a point too. But the only problem, the biggest problem I see, if you're trying to get retail involved, you need to incentivize. There has to be incentives. If there are no incentives besides me buying the coin, and I mean, let's say I have a job, let's say I have work to do, let's say I have a family. The only way I can participate is with a coin, with just buying the coin. I mean, think about it. If you're talking larger scale and larger, there has to be incentives in place. Whether that's creating an e-commerce website with identity or whatever, where people just all over the world are participating and they don't even know what they're doing, but they're participating in this better system. then they automatically become a spokespeople, you know?
Yeah, but
I
those
say
are the better systems that we need to build. So we are actually working with. There's something interesting things coming out in the next year. We're working with somebody that's building a very big system for something like that. But where's the value actually come? So let's say I have, like Joel has his eBay clone, and if he sells something, he get paid immediately. He doesn't have to go through a credit card process and lose 3.5%, and then he's going to get a charge back. There's massive value in that. We don't need the coin pairs to go up to do that. But those are the businesses that are going to drive the coin pairs up because there's going to be demand for the coin to be able to do those transactions. But just market something to get the coin price. So you're an investor in this stock. You're an investor in transaction fees. But if there's no transactions, there's nothing. There's no value. There's no fundamental value. The fundamental value of the coin has to come from demand of usage of the coin, from the utility of the coin, and that needs to happen from building businesses. So I think we've been for the last couple of years we've been focusing a lot on the enterprises, and I don't think that's worked very well. We need to go back to the grassroots and how people build up small businesses that are going to be big. I mean, just the fact that you have a business and you don't have to pay 3.5% and you don't get chargebacks. You know how much that's worth to somebody with a corner store, somebody with an online store. It amazes me that we're not building something like that, but it probably has to do with the fact that people don't even know that it exists, that they can do that. And there's also the problems now is that you don't want to do that with BSV, you want to do it with a stable coin because you're going to do that with the same currency that in your country. And there's lots of regulation hurdles that we need to take. But just that little 3.5% in no chart, there's massive value in that in commerce. That's what we need to build. And then that the network will have more value and then we'll go up. So our philosophy is, and you can criticize us for that, but we don't have the $1 billion that Cardano has to do all this marketing. It's the same thing. There's a lobbying happening both. We're doing lobbying in Europe and in the US. We have a couple of people doing that, and they're doing a great job. One of the guys that we're working with, we worked with him to make sure that proof of work wasn't banned in the European Union. I think I can safely say that we were a very big part of that because the European Union was going to do new regulation that killed proof of work because it's so wasteful. And we told them, no, if you have a utility blockchain, it's not wasteful. So we did that. But that's like a handful of people. We're up against Coinbase that has a $50 million lobbying budget in the US. We can't fight these guys. We can't go up against them. We don't have that kind of money. So I think we have to, and that's what we want to, is focus very much on the grassroots building of real businesses that actually have an edge on other businesses because they're using this technology, makes them cheaper, faster, and more efficient. So those are the businesses that we need to build, and that's hard. I mean, building any startup is really hard.
Siggy, just a quick question. Would I be wrong to assume that the best chance of getting real world use today would be like out of the continent of Africa, where like microtransactions and small amounts transacted without fees or very, 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 very low fees would be more desirable or more needed?
I am totally with you. So we actually are pushing for that very hard in the third world. So in Africa, plus in second world in Latin America, I think there's great opportunities. Also because there's a lot less incumbents, so we don't have these big banks and payment networks. So there's huge opportunities there as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean Africa has the opportunity to leapfrog several technologies and just get into direct payments right now. I mean, these guys don't even have landlines put down, right? They went from nothing to cell phones. They can do the equivalent in the payment industries.
Yep, absolutely. I think one of the things we have to be honest about as well is that we have a bad rep. And there's people that have been very successful as creating a bad rep around BSV. And like you say, most people actually don't know about us, and we do tell them what we're doing, and they're super excited. But there have been cases where people are getting into big corporations, talk to CEOs, CTOs. They're super excited. And then the last thing is, oh, I want my technical team to do a due diligence on you guys. and then they go do a little Google, or there's some BTC core fanatic in the technical team, and it just dies. That is that's also a reality that we have to acknowledge, and we have to fight through that.
That's why I think the consumer oriented business will win, because it generates the most amount of fees, if you want to call it fees, and then it generates the most usage as far as transactions, and it incentivizes people to participate and to tell their friends. Like if they don't have a skin in the game, they're not making any money. Like why like I'll ask people here in the room, when was the last time you used Amazon? And when was the last time you used eBay? Doesn't matter for what reason, just when was the last time? And that solves the biggest problem, where you need consumers. You have to build a product consumer facing, where you empower the consumer to come back again.
Yeah, I agree.
I think
But
that's
but it's hard. I mean, we have to be honest. That is hard, and that it doesn't happen overnight. So that's why I mentioned things like that pumped up fun, not because I think that's a great thing. It's something that we can run, NFTs. We can run. We can do all this stuff, and it's a lot of fun, and that creates interest. That opens people's eyes. Hey, look at this! There's something happening here. But I agree that fundamentally, it's actually about consumer-facing businesses benefiting from this technology because it's better, faster, cheaper than anything else.
I
Yeah.
personally don't think it's hard. It's just I don't have the technical capabilities to build such a system, because you need to have a wide, like you need to have a broad scale of things going in favor. You need payments, you need the website, you need the back end, you need this, you need that. So there must be a team, but I don't have the capacity to. But I know you said go build it, but I mean that's like it's a really big task. I think it's personally easy. It's easy because these competitors like Amazon and eBay, they charge like anywhere between 10 to 20% off of every transaction. So you're saying 3% MasterCard. I'm saying 10-20% for the consumer. So
Yep.
I like it, try to reduce that. eBay charges anywhere between 10 to 20% on every transaction, on every sale. So I mean that's a big percentage. Like any business that competes with that, like reduces like charges a quarter, 5% flat fee, or like 4% flat fee, 3% flat fee, will just like take everyone.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I'm absolutely 100% with you. And I think just like the story about Tonic Power, and how that they had to spend most of the money that they had actually to build the basics. We're building the basics now. So the basics are almost in place. All the libraries, overlays, Teranote is coming. All this stuff is there. Build these applications on top. So we've just been focused on the basics still,
do
because
you see
it. Yeah, go
do you
ahead.
see media platforms being able to now come back, like Twitch and things like that? Because I mean, everybody in our entire country or world, I mean, you can ask them what's a huge problem, and they're going to say social media. So I think that's why I was so focused on targeting content creators and showing them the power of micropayments and owning their data on these platforms. It's just, I think that's one huge thing that's missing in our ecosystem, is giving people a tool they can use that's better than things they're already using.
The problem is not the technology. I don't think Twitch went under because of technology. It's because they didn't have enough users to be sustainable. I think that's and that they're getting that network effect and getting a lot of people using your site, so you can actually get some money in, and be sustainable. That's really hard.
Yeah.
That's a hard problem, whether you're using Bitcoin or not. If you're using Bitcoin, it might be cheaper, faster, better, but you still have to get that network effect on all the users.
I feel like I had so many big influencers that were ready to take further action, and either the platforms themselves were bugging out, or there were onboarding issues with the wallet that was tied to the platform. It was always just the ecosystem itself not ready for them to take bigger actions with their large audiences. So I'm just been waiting for that kind of stuff to come back up, and then I think I can revive a lot of those relationships and bring some big people in. But just been kind of waiting for this back end infrastructure to be built to see where we're heading from that.
I think there's also another thing here as well. I think um, to the comment earlier is that you are not able to build this yourself. It's like Jack Dorsey is building something called Noster. It's like decentralized thing. It's probably much better to build that on BSV and an overlay and Bitcoin schema. Like, it would be a much better product. But he's getting millions and millions in investment to do that from VCs. That's also how you build companies. And maybe we don't have the business acumen or something to do that. But that's how you build business. You don't have to do everything yourself when you're building a business. If you have a great idea that's going to make money, you can get funding for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that you have this, that we are not known, that people hate us and are ignoring us. I think I'm on the Jameson Love ban list, so a lot of people on Twitter actually have blocked me, which is great. I don't talk to these people, but this is like a hidden secret. So you have a massive competitive advantage to build something, but you do need some funding. You need to make a real business out of it. It's not just going to be the coin price, and it's not just going to be some simple thing. You have to build a real business. It's hard.
Yeah,
I
I think.
Go ahead, Kurt.
I just wanted to say, I think, like there's a big disconnect in the purpose of what everybody else is doing with other blockchains. Like, yes, it is irritating to watch, people just minting millions out of nothing, and then, acting like we're the, somehow both the scammers and the idiots. But the the real purpose of this stuff is yet to be fulfilled by anybody. And so, there's paper wealth all over the place. And frankly, the world economy is built on a lot of paper wealth too. There's just a lot of fake businesses out there that wouldn't exist if it wasn't for lots of fake money. But, what we're trying to do is undermine that and then optimize and replace it. And that's, first of all, it's noble, but I hate to say that, because then I think people are like, oh, okay, Kurt wants me to work for free because, being poor is some kind of penance or something. But the fact of the matter is that, it's like being a colonizer in a new place. Like, it's very dangerous. Lots of people are going to suffer, but ultimately it's their job to see if there is an economy to be opened up in a very new place that you really can only speculate on if you do the work and take that risk. And so, we're the crazy people that are doing that. And, either it pays off more than it, has paid off for anybody else, or at some point, like, we essentially die of attrition. And, that, like, the fact of the matter is that both things are possible. And the only way to make it that we change the whole world is if we get past the notion that we're competing on coin price, because we're not competing on coin price. And Siggy's absolutely right that somebody has to build a business that makes lots of people's lives like 100 times better, such that they're willing to pay to use the blockchain to access that business. And my 14-month-old says hi, by the way.
Let me add to that what you're saying there, Kurt, for a minute here. So it's one of the things, baby. One of the things that happened back when the United States of America was first founded was there was a problem with too much scale, way too much scale, and there was too much land and not enough people. And they started to incentivize colonization of the West.
For sure.
If you remember, what they did was Congress put this thing out of the Constitution, which talked about the distribution of land, and it was Congress's duty. I think it's Article 4, Section 2, Clause 3, and it talks about in the Constitution. It talks about how Congress's duty was to distribute this land and they were really giving it away. Is what they were doing. Give away this land, entitle it to people, and patent for everybody so that they could build on it and start to colonize on it. And so they did this thing called land patents. And this is like in early days of the United States of America. And this was like, it went on for 100 years or so before it started getting traction. And then California became a state, and these other states started colonizing, and more people started coming out here. But I mean, it took that amount of time Now we're in the internet days, so we're working at light speed, and we're not in those days. So 100 years is maybe like a year. But I
Right.
mean, I think it's very similar to the way it was originally done in the United States of America. I mean, it's I'm just trying to maybe think about the business opportunity of how people could be incentivized to say, look, colonize here.
Yep.
Ha-
So I'm gonna need to get going. Unfortunately, I got the kids wondering why the heck I'm still working on a Friday night. But I think you're absolutely right, Gavin. Like the point is that I've said for a long time that our success is going to happen slowly and then suddenly, because really it's going to take one company that catches fire. It's the same thing with the internet. Like the internet sat and did nothing for 15, 20 years until people all got on AOL. And then they understood, like, oh wow, okay, I can talk to my friends, I can get my news, I can send emails, I can do they finally understood the value of the infrastructure, and then people started to build. Like it became exponential. But you got to get people to understand the opportunity, and that's just hard. But I think it's going to be the same thing with BSV. Like all of a sudden, there will be something that people say, oh, holy cow, my data is so much more valuable if it is time stamped and secured and distributed consensus. And, so we're going to do a lot of that. And then it becomes more profitable to mine. And as it becomes more profitable to mine, then there's more people that are, okay, well, I guess we're going to have to compete on mining this thing. And then, all of a sudden that momentum just picks up, and it's got that I forget what they call that exponential curve, but that's how it will pick up. And then all of a sudden it'll just be like, wow, 6 months ago it was like there was nothing going on, and all of a sudden we're swamped with work and opportunities and venture capital, and that's just how these things work. And so when you're really trying to build something fundamental, you keep laying the groundwork, you stay focused, build reputation. And at this point, like for myself, I can tell people like, yeah, I've been working on essentially the same project for 7 or 8 years. I really believe in it. And, that shows people like, oh, okay. Like he's not just, hey, you got 18 months to pull something off, or I'm just going to go work at some other startup in a totally different industry. It shows that there's passion, there's dedication, there's steadfastness there. And that really matters. And I think one day people are going to look back and say, oh man, there were only a few hundred people that saw it, and they saw it for a long time, and now it's used in everything. And I think that's how it'll play out. So I got to run. Thank you for having me on, everybody. I really appreciate it. Siggy, good to catch up with you. Lots of good stuff. And Gavin, Casey, and everybody else, it's been really great. So talk soon.
Cheers, Kurt. See you soon.
Thanks.
Maybe I can jump in and just say a couple of words, and then also it's getting very late here as well, so sign off. But we have been trying to do that, though. We have been trying to subsidize. So what you said, Gavin, about giving things away to try to incentivize people, that transaction fees going down to 1 sat, which is absolutely ridiculous, is a way to do that. It's like, oh, you want to build an application? It's basically free. Your transactions are free. And it didn't work, because that didn't work. And so my focus now is very much on getting Teranote finished. That's one, but also is getting Degen to finish his distributed application stack to make it much easier to build. So we need to set out this framework. We need to. What we're basically doing is we're preparing the ground for everybody. So if you want to build your farm, that's what we're doing. We're making sure that the ground is actually ready to be farmed. So we're setting up these libraries. We're going to have identity. We're going to have payments. You're going to have tokens. You're going to have all the stuff that you would need to build something that's a little bit hard, to have something cryptography, blockchain. All the difficult stuff is going to be there. So you're going to have a fertile ground to build your farm on. But you have to build the farm. So that's our strategy now. We've been trying to incentivize in various ways, but I think the best way to do that now is to make the tools that are needed for that as easy as possible, and then also create lots of examples of how to do that. So if you want to integrate it into your web shop, this is how you do that. We'll show you. We'll literally give you the code to do that. If you want to integrate identity into it, we'll literally give you the code. If you want to have stable coins or direct payments. We'll literally show you how to do that in multiple languages. So that's our strategy at the moment, to try to do that in that analogy.
I'm sure that'll be really helpful for a lot of people. Before you go, I'll let One Love say what she was going to say. She had her hand up for quite a while. And
Oh,
then
that's okay. It's long past. I don't want to derail the conversation. Pretty much everybody said what needed to be said. I just had some questions about it because as a person who has some businesses that are trying to build things on BSV, I can tell you it's been really difficult. And I was sort of just wanted to understand from a Teranode perspective where thought process was. But you answered the questions, so I understand where you guys stand. So we'll let you guys continue.
If you are building something on BSV and you're having trouble, reach out to us. And, we can help. We're perfectly willing to help you set up your business.
Right.
We're not
No,
in here to make
yeah,
a
it's not
profit. We're
about
not.
that. It's more, you touched on it earlier, right? And I think everybody understands this already. I mean, if you don't start growing users exponentially, your business dies. That's what happens.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's where a lot of people are. I can only speak for myself, actually. I just know some other people that feel the same way. It's frustrating. And yeah, so I mean, unfortunately, right now, it might be wait, don't build something yet, because if you start off right now, you could end up falling flat on your face unless there is already momentum going. Know about it, be here, keep in contact with what's going on, try and build those connections. But without any sort of growing momentum, like you said before, with you've got people that are interested, they want to go do due diligence, and then all of a sudden you've got an issue, right? Because of the PR problem as well. There's a couple of hurdles here that I feel like need to be addressed, and it's frustrating when you know something's good, and it's difficult to try and get other people to understand the value in something when there is a lot of negativity surrounding it, right? So that's basically all I want to say. I don't want to take up much of your time.
No, but that's absolutely true. But I think we have to move away from the whole blockchain ecosystem and trying to convince people of the value of BSV, and we have to convince them of the value of the business that we're building and that it's using BSV. They don't even have to know that. It's just going to be cheaper, better, faster, and they don't know that BSV's underlying that thing. It's safe, it's secure, and it's payments built in, all that good stuff. Don't tell them it's using BSV. You don't have to.
Siggy, to your point, the eBay, for example, has a revenue of 10 billion per year and net 2 billion. So I mean, someone can just build an e-commerce minus the Silk Road and just, be very successful.
A lot of people have, and they're not successful. That's also the reality of it. I mean, eBay has a network effect. So if you want to buy something, you want to sell something, you go to eBay. And there's
And
actually,
I
so I
know,
lived in that.
Siggy, 1 second. I know a
Okay.
number of people who are not participating on eBay because of fees. They're like, it's not worth it for me to sell my items on eBay.
Yes, you know what? Actually, the biggest problem with creating a competitor to eBay, it's not BSV and it's not the technology, but it's actually getting all those people to know that you exist at all. It's the marketing. That's with any business that you're trying to do. You can have the best content in the world, but if the world doesn't know about you, you're going to go nowhere. That is the biggest problem. And unfortunately, in the blockchain world, I don't think, I don't know what the percentage of people that are actually playing, maybe 0.1% or something like that. It's a big group of people, and it's all about hot air, and it's all, this flashy marketing, and they all hate us, so they're not going to come to us. But that's how these projects survive. To go into the real world, you have to convince, your mom's friends that this thing is better than eBay. That's very hard. It's hard to start businesses.
Well, and a lot of these companies don't actually have organic growth. They're just in the club. So that's why they take off.
Exactly.
I disagree. I think fees, like people just go to fees, and if you save people money, you're like, hey, instead of paying 10% to Amazon or eBay, come pay here 3%, 4%, 2%,
But they
whatever.
have to, okay, if it's a selling business, they have to make sales in order to save that money. So the sales have to be, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's fine and
Yeah.
dandy,
Yeah.
but you still need people to know that you're there and to know that platform and to
Absolutely.
come to you and actually spend money so you can save that money.
And that's why Siggy's point is very valid. The network effect is really important.
And actually, so one of the conclusions that came out in Tonic Power a couple of years ago, and that's the reason that the Be Social, Bitcoin schema, OneSat, and all the stuff that they're building there is we're never, you know, and that's also a way of thinking about, and maybe we have to join forces in a different way. Instead of trying to build an eBay competitor, let's build a decentralized system of where we can actually, you know, put products up for sale, and we can use the Bitcoin script to manage that. That's already possible. I think you can do DeFi selling of one set things. Well, that one set thing could be your cabinet that you're selling or your TV that you want to sell, completely decentralized, and then we can build multiple front ends on top of that thing. And then the Bitcoin network is actually what keeps all that stuff from double spending and double sales. So we could build multiple websites that are all building on the same network. That's an idea that's been in our head for a couple of years. Instead of fighting eBay, fighting X is actually great, or fighting Amazon, let's build different things where many players can join forces. And so you are fighting for the consumer attention on your UX and your UI, but actually the underlying things, you're selling the same thing as this other person. And that makes your site a lot more successful, because you could have 100,000 products on your site because you have the same catalog as all these other 1,000 sites that are selling around the world. There's another way of doing that. That's a lot harder, but I think Kurt and his team at Whirlpool are working very hard on a lot of these things, and that's what the OneSat stuff is. That the OneSat marketplace is actually a decentralized marketplace. It's really cool, but just not enough people using it yet.
And I agree with you on every point you just made right now.
So
I
let's
think
do
the
it. Let's
I think
build
the
it.
old models are really just like dinosaurs, pretty much.
Yes.
Right on, Siggy.
Yep. I was going to say we should let you get going for the weekend. Thank you so much for coming on, spending all this time with us, Siggy.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you, guys. I'm actually outside. I've been laying in my hammock looking at the stars and the mountain and stuff. I
Nice.
don't know if you guys heard that, but it's been awesome.
That's such an awesome thought and vision of you. So I really appreciate all the hard work you've done. Gavin, do you want to say anything about closing thoughts here? Or?
Yeah, let's go over to Bose first, and he just joined up. Bose, how you been, man?
Hey, Gavin. Yeah, I'm okay. Can you hear me okay? My mic's
Could be
probably
better. Could
probably
be.
sound underwater.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like you're water.
All right, I'll speak up. So, one thing I wanted to say about I moved to say something when Steve was talking about the eBay idea, and that people, your one sat could be your cabinet, etc., and let's make a decentralized marketplace. And I think that's going in the wrong direction. I appreciate the work that Siggy's doing very much. But I also think that
Uh-oh.
and going for a B2C model is not the right way, and trying to convince your mom, brother, sister, aunt, etc., that this is a better thing because it's cheaper is not the right way, and trying to convince people that paying 2% instead of 10% on their transaction that they make once a month is not the right way either. And what you really want to do is think very broadly. You kind of need to decide what you're going to eat for lunch, because there's a lot of things to eat out there in terms of data. You think very broadly, and then instead of like trying to engineer a product for people, go out to the world and offer services and just say, we will integrate you with blockchain. And they will say, I don't know what that is, but I know it's the future. And you say, it's okay, I'm an expert. And then you begin by integrating their systems using AI to build them into the blockchain anywhere you can, verify their data, etc., etc. And if you go at the market, if you start a business and you go to market with a service-oriented mindset, you will do a lot better than if you go with a product-oriented mindset. Because you can just onboard random businesses that are like, yeah, I want to integrate with blockchain. They don't even know what it means. Yeah, build my website on the blockchain. That's great. And you'll find more and more people have data-oriented businesses, and they want to get some exposure to blockchain. You say, we can validate your data, we can log it online, etc., etc. That is a much better approach, I think, than thinking, oh, what do people want? How can I create an app? So that was just it. I wanted to say that I think the decentralized approach to marketplaces is wrong-headed, just because it's the kind of Uber thinking about how Uber is some unregulated thing where anybody can turn up in their car and pick you up and take you where you want to go, and it'll be a great free market and no regulations. And it's just like, no, that just doesn't work. Like, that's really unsafe and horrible, and all the governments and all the taxi companies will fight you, and they'll be right too. And you just don't have that. So, it's all about companies, basically. It's not about quote unquote decentralization. With great apologies, Siggy.
No, not at all. I appreciate that. That's absolutely fine. I think we don't know what's going to be successful. So I think we have to attack all fronts. So if somebody's very passionate about the whole decentralized marketplace, do that. If you have a service business where you can do actually what you say, and we're doing the same thing. We are doing this too with companies that are moving from other chains, or they actually want to go into onto a blockchain. We're helping them do that. But we have to do both, and we have to do other things as well, and we have to try to be creative, because we don't know where the success is going to come from. And it might not be the decentralized marketplace. I mean, you might be absolutely right. But if somebody's not in the business, some people are passionate about that. They don't want to be working with companies to hook them off the marketplace. Let them play with that other thing. Let them do that. I don't think we should be united in our idea that, this is the best blockchain. Well, let's put it differently. Blockchain is good enough to do all this stuff, and it can scale, and therefore it's awesome. And that success is going to come on top of that from various directions, and we don't know what that is. Let's just try everything, and let's not try to be united or single-minded in this is the solution, so we all have to go after that solution. Now, that single solution is BSV, and then let's just try everything to make that successful.
Woo.
Great plan in my book. I think we should call it for the day. Gavin?
Yeah. Second that. Any closing thoughts from you, Siggy?
No, this has been a lot of fun, and I think we have a amazing community of, we're not a lot of people, unfortunately, but I think we are the hardcore believers. I am one of those myself. I fell in love with technology in 2013, and I still believe in it, and that's what keeps me driving forward. Driving my wife crazy because I'm working too hard. But I still think this has to be successful in the end. It cannot be. You're not going to tell me that all these other projects that don't scale and don't work are going to. This is going to be successful, but it's taking a lot longer than I expected, and it's probably going to take longer than we hope. But we just have to keep on chugging and believe in the mission. And most of the people that are working on my team are doing this for a purpose. They're very purposeful in what they're doing. We're probably not vocal enough on social media. We don't talk enough about what we're doing, but we're just working very, very hard on making this work, because we really believe in this. And I believe that in the end is going to be what is going to make us successful, that we have everything in place, all the primitives, all the libraries, all the tooling. And then when people's eyes are opening slowly. The more we talk to people, this is a funny thing, a bit of an anecdote, but so I don't have to travel that much anymore, which is fantastic. So I like traveling. My brother was the MD Ausger. He is traveling a lot, talking to a lot of people, and he almost meets no negativity. He's talking to people from Coinbase and Kraken and Bitvavo, and all these exchanges are supposed to hate us. There's no hate there. If they know about us, they think it's really cool that we're still here and we're still fighting the big block game. And if they don't know about us, he tells them about it, they're amazed. So they're all this hate that we're getting from the trolls on X, it doesn't exist out in the real world. I think it's probably more likely that people don't know about us, that don't want to work with us. And so we just have to keep on doing that, keep on telling people, to keep on telling the story, keep telling people what we're doing, and show them the applications and real utility. And slowly we'll build up this new world that we believe in and make this successful. But don't expect, I would say that it's not going to come quickly, not going to all of a sudden jump in the next couple of months, or when Teranode is released. Probably nothing's going to happen because nobody's paying attention. Not enough people are paying attention, but they will if we keep on going.
Yeah, they will. Definitely. Closing thoughts, Abo Mac, you're still up on stage. Anything closing to add? J Paps, closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts is it's very nice to hear from Siggy. Thank you for your insights. Listen, man, if not this blockchain, tell me which one. That's how I see it. I'm here for the long haul. I'm here. I believe in it as well. I see the technology. Hopefully, when Teranote rolls out and some good some enterprise people come on board and some transactions start moving, I mean, other people will start seeing. It's as simple as that. You know, we gotta prove by doing. We gotta show by doing. You know, talk is cheap.
Casey,
Exactly.
thank you, J Paps. Casey Nicole.
I just want to thank you again, Siggy, for your time. I was really great connecting with you. The last time I've really spent any time with you was when we were doing the social Bitcoin web consortium stuff with Ryan. So it's just great to see how much progress you've spearheaded, from then till now. So just thank you, and have a wonderful weekend. Tell your wife we appreciate her sharing you with us for a little while as well, and we'll talk soon.
And my closing thoughts here. I remember when I first heard about this stuff and I got really interested in and excited about it was when my buddy Juan, who owned a water store in Sacramento, he basically gave me the WebBot report. He told me about Ethereum, and he was coming out, or it just came out, and told me about, you read this WebBot report from this crazy guy, Cliff I. I'm like, why? But I trusted the guy. He was a millionaire guy. He's a business owner, and I'm like, I had to listen to what he had to say, so I checked it out. I started getting so excited about it, and trying to figure out this computer and how the freaking Ethereum even worked, and we're way, or it's like this is the second wave of all that. We're such a, all the, these other blockchains. I mean, that and the crypto projects that have come and gone because they didn't work. And so now we're at the second wave. It's like the beginning of the original Bitcoin. I don't know, 2011, 2012 timeframe is where we're at. And I remember in that WebBot report, he always talked about how there's like the innovators, the early adopters, the market makers, and these different waves of people that are going to get involved in projects. And I do think that we're still really, really like at the very innovator stage. And, for those who have been in it for super long, that's frustrating because you've been an innovator for so long. But at the same time, it's really just it's basically restarting in a way right now. So I guess in a bigger picture perspective, I'm grateful to be at the innovator stage and be at the beginning and not learning about this, let's say 5 or 10 years down the road, and maybe we're early, but I'd rather be early than late. So yeah. So, hey, thanks everybody for jumping on. Thank you, Siggy, for coming on the stage today and joining everybody. Let's do it again sometime, and we'll end it there. J Paps, Abo Mac, Kurt, thanks for joining the stage, and everybody, all the listeners and votes, thanks for coming up. One love. And I see all the people. Vince, I haven't talked to in a while, man. By the way, thank you. I owe you a thank you for what you gave me there in San Francisco. And yeah, everybody else, see you guys at the top. All right, I'm going to end it there. Later. Did it end? Thought I was following her. What?